What if death was just a doorway, not an ending? For as long as humans have told stories, we've dreamed of beings who exist beyond time, creatures untouched by age, disease, or decay. These immortal figures live in the myths and legends of every culture on Earth, reflecting our deepest hopes, our most primal fears, and our timeless fascination with what lies beyond the final horizon. From the majestic phoenix rising from its own ashes to the terrifying Hydra sprouting two heads where one was cut away, these beings aren't just monsters or marvels, they are mirrors. They show us what we long for, what we dread, and what we believe might be possible. In this video, we're setting out on an epic journey through the rich tapestry of global mythology to explore the incredible diversity of immortal creatures. We'll travel from the frostbitten realms of Norse legends to the sun-drenched temples of Egypt, from the misty highlands of Celtic folklore to the vibrant spiritual landscapes of Hindu epics. Along the way, we'll meet entities whose very existence challenges everything we think we know about life and death. Some represent cyclical rebirth, like the phoenix. Others embody regenerative power, like the Hydra. Some are tied to cosmic balance, like Yermangander, the world's serpent, while others reflect our desire for wisdom beyond centuries, like the Persian Simurgh. But this isn't just a tour of fantastic beasts. It's an exploration of what these stories say about us, about human nature, our relationship with mortality, and that universal, unshakable yearning for something permanent in a transient world. Why do these tales endure? Why do they still speak to us so powerfully today, in an age of science and reason? As we uncover the secrets of these eternal beings, we might just discover something profound about our own quest for meaning, legacy, and perhaps even a form of immortality ourselves. So settle in and open your mind. We're about to dive into one of humanity's oldest and most captivating mysteries. When we talk about immortality in mythology, our modern minds often jump to a simple, straightforward idea: living forever, period. But if we take a closer look at the vast tapestry of human stories, we quickly see that this concept is anything but simple. Across different cultures and eras, immortality wears many faces, each revealing a unique perspective on existence, death, and what might come after. It's not a single destination but a spectrum of possibilities, reflecting the deepest values and fears of the people who imagined them. For some, true immortality meant absolute invulnerability, a complete defiance of death in the physical realm. Think of a creature like the Hydra from Greek myths, where cutting off one head only results in two more growing back. This is a brutal, relentless form of eternity, rooted in an unending cycle of resistance. In other traditions, immortality wasn't about avoiding death but transcending it through rebirth. The magnificent phoenix, for instance, doesn't just live forever in a static body. It periodically burns away its old form only to be born again from the ashes. This symbolizes a more hopeful, regenerative kind of eternity, one that embraces change and renewal rather than simple permanence. Then there are cultures that envisioned immortality not as a physical state at all, but as a spiritual one. Ancient Norse warriors dreamed of earning a place in Valhalla, where they would feast and fight until the end of the world. Their immortality was a reward, a glorious extension of their earthly purpose into the afterlife. On the other side of the world, Chinese alchemists sought to achieve physical immortality through elixirs and spiritual practices, reflecting a desire to harmonize the human body with the eternal principles of the universe. These differing goals, a warrior's paradise versus a sage's endless life, show us how concepts of eternity are shaped by what a society prizes most. Even the nature of an immortal being's vulnerability tells a profound story. In Slavic folklore, Koschei the Deathless can't be killed by any conventional means because his soul is hidden inside a needle, inside an egg, inside a duck, and so on. His immortality is conditional, built on a secret weakness. This suggests that even the most powerful eternal forces might have a fragile core, a hidden flaw that makes them relatable to us mortals. It implies that nothing, not even immortality, is absolute. Everything has its rules, its boundaries, its price. What becomes clear is that these mythological definitions are never just about the mechanics of living forever. They are philosophical explorations. They answer questions about what gives life meaning, what awaits us after death, and whether eternal life would be a blessing or a curse. A vampire's immortality, for example, is often portrayed as a lonely, cursed existence, highlighting the potential downside of eternity, the burden of endless time, the isolation, the loss of one's humanity. By contrast, the benevolent immortality of a creature like the Chinese dragon represents wisdom, power, and harmony with the cosmic order. So the next time you encounter an immortal being in a myth, ask yourself not just how it lives forever, but what kind of forever it represents. Is it an eternity of struggle, of wisdom, of service, or of sorrow? The answer will tell you more about the culture that created it than about the creature itself. These stories are mirrors, reflecting humanity's deepest anxieties and highest aspirations about time, death, and the tantalizing possibility of something more. Of all the mythical creatures that defy death, perhaps none captures the imagination quite like the phoenix. This magnificent bird doesn't simply live forever, it dies over and over again, only to be reborn from its own ashes in a breathtaking cycle of destruction and renewal. Its immortality isn't a static existence but a dynamic process, a fiery transformation that speaks to something deep within the human spirit. While many immortal beings represent an escape from death, the phoenix offers us a far more profound lesson. That true eternity might be found not in avoiding endings, but in embracing them as the necessary prelude to new beginnings. The story of this incredible creature begins not in one culture, but two, with each adding its own unique layers of meaning. In ancient Egypt, the concept first took flight as the Bennu bird, a divine heron-like creature closely linked to the sun god Ra. The Bennu was believed to have played a role in the very creation of the world, perching on the first mound of earth to emerge from the primordial waters. Its cry was said to mark the beginning of time itself, and it became powerfully associated with the daily cycle of the sun, dying each evening in a glorious sunset only to be reborn at dawn. This connection to solar cycles established the earliest idea of immortality through rhythmic, predictable renewal, tying the creature's fate to the most fundamental rhythms of the universe. Greek storytellers later adopted and adapted this concept, giving us the phoenix as we more commonly know it today. They described a bird with radiant feathers of crimson and gold, a being so magnificent that it apparently had no need to reproduce. There was only one phoenix at a time, living a solitary life for 500 years. When its long life drew to a close, it would build a nest of aromatic spices like cinnamon and myrrh, which would then ignite from the heat of its own body or from the rays of the sun. Both the bird and its nest would be consumed in this sacred fire, and from the ashes, a new phoenix would emerge, often carrying the remains of its previous incarnation to the city of the sun god to begin the cycle anew. This dramatic act of self-immolation and rebirth transformed the creature from a solar symbol into a powerful metaphor for resilience and hope rising from despair. What makes the phoenix's form of immortality so distinctive is its complete acceptance of death as part of its eternal nature. Unlike vampires who cling to undead existence or dragons who hoard life through physical invulnerability, the phoenix willingly undergoes its fiery end. It doesn't resist death but collaborates with it, understanding that dissolution is necessary for regeneration. This makes it one of mythology's most optimistic immortal beings. It carries the promise that even from complete destruction, something new and beautiful can emerge. In this way, the phoenix became an early symbol of resilience, teaching that setbacks and endings aren't final, but rather opportunities for transformation and growth. This powerful symbolism has ensured the phoenix's enduring relevance across centuries and cultures. Early Christians saw it as an allegory for Christ's resurrection and the promise of eternal life. In Chinese mythology, the Feng Huang, often translated as phoenix, represents high virtue and the harmonious union of yin and yang. Even in our modern vocabulary, we describe individuals or communities recovering from disaster as rising from the ashes, directly invoking this ancient myth. The phoenix continues to captivate us because it addresses a fundamental human anxiety about endings while offering a hopeful alternative to mere permanence. It suggests that the most meaningful form of immortality isn't about preserving what we are forever, but about trusting in our capacity to become something new through the cycles of loss and renewal. While the phoenix teaches us about the beauty of cyclical rebirth, ancient Greek mythology offers a far more terrifying vision of immortality through the Hydra of Lerna. This monstrous water serpent, dwelling in the swamps near the ancient spring of Ammon, presented a horrifying form of eternity, not through graceful renewal, but through a violent, multiplying regeneration that made it nearly impossible to kill. For every single head that was severed from its ghastly body, 2 more would sprout in its place, creating an exponentially growing nightmare for anyone foolish enough to confront it. This wasn't just a beast, it was a seemingly unsolvable problem given physical form, an immortal creature whose very nature defied conventional combat and straightforward solutions. The Hydra's origins were as monstrous as its appearance. Born from the twisted union of the primordial monsters Echidna and Typhon, it was raised by the goddess Hera herself, who harbored a deep resentment against the hero Hercules. The creature was no mere animal but a divine instrument of vengeance, its multiple heads often depicted as anywhere from 5 to 100, each containing deadly venom, while its central head was said to be completely immortal. Its presence in the swamps of Lerna wasn't just a territorial hazard, it was a corruption of the natural order, a blight upon the land that poisoned the waters and devoured the livestock and people of the surrounding villages. This context transforms the Hydra from a simple monster into a symbolic manifestation of a problem that grows worse the more one tries to confront it directly, a challenge that resonates deeply with the human experience of intractable issues. The true lesson of the Hydra emerges not from its terrifying immortality, but from how that immortality was ultimately overcome. Hercules, as part of his famous 12 labors, was tasked with destroying this seemingly invincible creature. His initial approach was straightforward and forceful. He confronted the beast, luring it from its cave with flaming arrows, and began the gruesome work of decapitating its heads with his sword or a giant golden sickle. Yet with each head he lopped off, the problem literally doubled before his eyes. The Hydra wasn't being defeated. It was becoming stronger, more numerous, and more overwhelming. This direct assault, relying purely on strength and violence, was not just failing, it was actively making the situation worse, a powerful metaphor for how brute force often exacerbates complex problems rather than solving them. Victory came only through a shift in strategy, through collaboration and cleverness rather than pure might. Hercules enlisted the help of his nephew, Iolaus, who brought a blazing torch to the battlefield. As Hercules severed each head, Iolaus swiftly cauterized the bleeding neck stump with fire, preventing the regrowth that made the Hydra immortal. This 2-person solution, one to attack and one to prevent the consequence of that attack, showcased the power of teamwork and innovative thinking. For the one immortal head, Hercules had to adopt a different tactic still, burying it beneath a massive boulder after severing it, effectively containing rather than destroying what could not be killed. The hero then dipped his arrows in the Hydra's poisonous blood, turning the monster's own power against future enemies, completing the transformation of a terrible threat into a useful tool. What makes the Hydra's story endure is its profound symbolic resonance. The creature embodies those persistent challenges in our own lives that seem to multiply when we attack them head-on, addictions that strengthen with each failed attempt to quit, conflicts that escalate with each angry word, bureaucratic problems that generate more paperwork with each solution attempted. The Hydra teaches us that some problems cannot be solved through direct confrontation alone. They require us to step back, find the root cause, the metaphorical neck stump, and apply a different kind of intervention. Its immortality represents the frustrating, cyclical nature of such deeply entrenched issues, while its defeat offers hope that with creative thinking, assistance from others, and a willingness to try unconventional methods, even the most Hydra-like problems in our lives can be overcome. From the swamps of Greece, we now journey north to the icy realms of Norse mythology, where an entirely different concept of immortality awaits us, one not of regeneration or rebirth, but of cosmic scale and destiny. Here, in the freezing waters that surround the world of Midgard, dwells Yermangander, the Midgard Serpent, a being so vast that it encircles the entire earthly realm, gripping its own tail in an eternal, unbreakable circle. This isn't just a large snake, it's a living boundary between the known world and the chaotic unknown, a physical manifestation of the limits of human existence. Unlike the Phoenix or Hydra, Jörmungandr's immortality isn't about personal survival or even cyclical renewal. It's about being an essential, inextricable part of the universe's very structure, bound to the cosmos itself until the final days. Jörmungandr's origin story reveals much about its unique nature. Born from the trickster god Loki and the giantess Angerboda, the serpent was considered so dangerous and monstrous that Odin himself cast it into the great ocean that surrounds Midgard. Yet in this act of banishment, something extraordinary happened. The serpent grew so large that it could encircle the entire world, its body forming a protective, or perhaps constricting barrier between order and chaos. This transformation from rejected monster to cosmic necessity shows how Norse mythology often blurs the line between threat and essential component of reality. The serpent's immortality isn't a reward or a curse. It's simply its function, its inevitable role in maintaining the balance of existence until that balance must be fundamentally reset. What makes Jörmungandr's immortality so fascinating is its conditional nature tied to cosmic events. The serpent cannot die until Ragnarok, the apocalyptic battle that will end the current world order. This creates a profound form of destiny-bound immortality where the creature's existence is guaranteed, not by its own invulnerability, but by its predetermined role in the universe's timeline. Its famous rivalry with Thor, the thunder god, culminates in this final battle where Jörmungandr will emerge from the ocean, poisoning the skies and seas with its venom before facing Thor in their ultimate confrontation. Both will perish in this battle, but their deaths serve a greater purpose, clearing the way for a new world to emerge from the ashes of the old. This suggests that in the Norse worldview, even immortality has its appropriate time and place within larger cycles of creation and destruction. The image of Yermangander biting its own tail forms an Ouroboros, an ancient symbol of cyclicality, eternity, and the endless cycle of destruction and recreation. This symbolism connects the serpent to broader philosophical concepts about time and existence found across many cultures. However, the Norse interpretation adds a distinctly grim and fateful dimension. The cycle isn't just natural but apocalyptic, requiring total destruction before renewal can occur. The serpent's immortality thus becomes a timer counting down to the end of all things, a constant reminder that even the gods themselves are subject to cosmic laws and inevitable endings. This reflects the Norse appreciation for harsh truths and unavoidable destinies, contrasting with more optimistic visions of eternity found in other traditions. Jörmungandr teaches us that immortality might not always be about individual continuity, but about playing an essential role in the universe's grand narrative. Its existence matters not because it lives forever as an individual being, but because it performs a crucial function in maintaining and eventually transforming cosmic order. This perspective invites us to consider immortality not as personal endless life, but as becoming part of something eternal, whether through our contributions to culture, our connections to future generations, or our role in larger patterns that extend beyond our individual existence. The World Serpent story challenges our egocentric notions of eternity, suggesting that true immortality might lie in how we fit into the vast, interconnected tapestry of existence rather than in simply persisting as isolated individuals through endless time. Now we travel from the frozen Norse cosmos to the heart of ancient China, where the concept of immortality takes on a completely different character, one of harmony, wisdom, and celestial authority. Here, the dragon is not a terrifying beast to be slain, but a revered celestial being, a symbol of benevolent power and cosmic balance. Its immortality isn't about brute invulnerability or fearsome regeneration. Instead, it flows from its perfect alignment with the natural order and its sacred role as a bridge between heaven and earth. This majestic creature embodies a form of eternity that is less about defying death and more about existing in a perpetual state of grace and power within the universe's eternal cycles. The Chinese dragon, or long, is a composite creature, a magnificent fusion of 9 different animals, each part symbolizing a profound aspect of the cosmos. With the horns of a stag, the head of a camel, the eyes of a demon, the neck of a snake, the belly of a clam, the scales of a carp, the claws of an eagle, the paws of a tiger, and the ears of an ox, it represents the ultimate harmony of all natural forms. This intricate design signifies that the dragon's power and immortality come from its embodiment of the entire natural world. It doesn't conquer nature, it is nature distilled into a single, powerful form. Its eternal existence is therefore a function of its completeness, its representation of the timeless principles that govern reality. Unlike the Hydra's violent regeneration, the dragon's permanence is serene and assured, woven into the very fabric of existence. This celestial status granted the dragon command over the most vital forces of life, water and weather. It was believed to dwell in the heavens, in deep waters, or in the clouds, controlling the rains, the rivers, and the seas. The dragon's benevolence was measured by its management of these elements. Timely rains brought prosperity and abundance, while droughts or floods were seen as a sign of its displeasure or a disruption in the celestial order. This role made the dragon not just immortal but indispensable. Its eternal existence was crucial for the continued flourishing of the world. Its immortality was a service, a perpetual responsibility to maintain the balance of nature, making it a deeply respected and worshipped deity rather than a monster to be feared. This divine connection was powerfully co-opted by China's imperial rulers, who created one of history's most enduring links between mythological immortality and political power. Emperors famously claimed to be descended from dragons, styling themselves as true dragon, son of heaven. This was not merely a boast, it was a sophisticated political theology designed to legitimize their absolute authority. By asserting a bloodline connection to an immortal celestial being, an emperor transformed his rule from a temporary earthly appointment into a divine, eternal mandate. The dragon's immortality became his own. His power was presented as part of the unchangeable cosmic order, as natural and perpetual as the changing seasons the dragon itself controlled. The emperor's throne was the dragon throne. His robes were dragon robes, and his face was the dragon's face. Every aspect of his iconography reinforced this sacred kinship. This imperial association reveals a crucial distinction in how immortality was perceived. In many Western traditions, immortal beings often exist outside or in opposition to human power structures, gods on Olympus, monsters in distant lands. In China, the dragon's immortality was directly integrated into the human world's highest authority. It served to stabilize society, providing a cosmological foundation for the state's existence. The emperor, as the dragon's descendant, was the living conduit between the celestial immortality of his ancestor and the mortal realm he governed. His duty was to emulate the dragon's harmonious rule, ensuring his empire prospered through balance and wisdom. Therefore, the Chinese dragon offers a uniquely philosophical perspective on eternal life. Its immortality isn't a desperate struggle against mortality, but a serene existence in concert with it. It represents the idea that true permanence is found not in individual indestructibility, but in becoming an essential, harmonious part of a larger, eternal system, the cosmos itself. This shifts the question from "how can I live forever?" to "how can I live in a way that aligns with what is eternal?" The dragon's lesson is that immortality is a state of being achieved through wisdom, balance, and service to the natural order, a concept that continues to resonate in Chinese culture and offers a profoundly different way to think about our own place in the universe. While the Chinese dragon represents immortality achieved through harmony with the cosmic order, Hindu mythology presents us with a dramatically different scenario, a literal, tumultuous quest for an elixir of eternal life that reveals profound truths about cooperation, sacrifice, and the very nature of liberation. The central myth is the Samudra Manthan, or the churning of the ocean of milk, an epic collaboration between two eternal enemies, the Devas or gods and the Asuras, the demons or anti-gods. This temporary alliance was born not from sudden friendship but from sheer necessity. Both groups had been weakened by a curse and sought Amrita, the nectar of immortality, to restore their power and secure their existence. The story immediately presents us with a fascinating paradox. The pursuit of something eternal requires a fragile, temporary partnership between opposing forces, suggesting that the path to immortality might demand that we work with rather than simply conquer our deepest adversaries. The churning itself was a monumental undertaking that required both sides to harness the entire cosmos as their tool. They used Mount Mandara as the churning rod and the great serpent king Vasuki as the rope wrapped around the mountain. The Devas held one end of the serpent while the Asuras held the other, and as they pulled back and forth, the mountain rotated, churning the primordial ocean for thousands of years. This incredible image gods and demons using a world mountain and a divine serpent to stir the ocean powerfully symbolizes that achieving immortality is not a simple task but a cosmic effort requiring the mobilization of immense forces and the reconciliation of opposites. The process itself was arduous and destructive. The friction of the mountain threatened to set the world on fire until the god Indra extinguished the flames with rain, and the immense strain caused the mountain to sink into the underworld until Vishnu, in his tortoise avatar Kurma, dove beneath to support it on his shell. Each obstacle required divine intervention and adaptation, illustrating that the quest for permanence is fraught with challenges that test the resolve and ingenuity of all involved. What emerged from this cosmic churning was not immediately the nectar of immortality, but a series of other treasures and poisons that had to be dealt with first. The first product was a deadly poison called Valhalla, so toxic it threatened to destroy all of creation. Lord Shiva, in an act of ultimate sacrifice and compassion, drank the poison to save the universe, holding it in his throat, which turned blue, earning him the name Nilakantha. This moment is crucial. Before the nectar of life could appear, the nectar of death had to be confronted and neutralized through self-sacrifice. It suggests that true immortality cannot be achieved without first facing and integrating the reality of mortality and destruction. Only after this act of courage did the ocean begin to yield its treasures. The divine physician Dhanvantari emerged with the pot of Amrita, followed by the goddess of prosperity Lakshmi, the divine elephant Airavata, and other celestial beings and objects. The sequence is deeply symbolic. Healing and immortality emerge only after confronting death, and only alongside other divine gifts like prosperity, beauty, and strength, implying that eternal life is part of a package of divine blessings, not an isolated attainment. The distribution of the Amrita led to the climax of the story, where the temporary cooperation between gods and demons shattered into the expected conflict. The Asuras, driven by greed, attempted to seize the nectar for themselves. To prevent this, Vishnu transformed into the enchanting Mohini, a beautiful illusion, who distracted the demons and ensured only the Devas drank the elixir, though one demon, Rahu, managed to sneak a sip and was decapitated by Vishnu's discus, becoming an eternal celestial head. This dramatic conclusion reinforces that immortality is not a prize to be won through force or deception, but a state granted through divine grace and adherence to cosmic order. The story ultimately presents Amrita not as a mere potion for endless earthly existence, but as a symbolic representation of moksha, liberation from the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth known as samsara. In Hindu philosophy, this liberation is the true immortality, a release into a state of eternal, blissful union with the divine that transcends the limited, suffering-filled existence of the physical world. This myth beautifully connects to other immortal beings in the Hindu tradition, such as the Nagas, serpent deities often associated with water, fertility, and immortality due to their ability to shed their skin and be symbolically reborn. The divine twin physicians, the Ashvins, also embody aspects of this quest as gods of medicine and health who restore youth and vitality. Together, these elements present a holistic view where immortality is not a single dramatic event but a complex interplay of cooperation, sacrifice, divine intervention, and ultimately, a transcendental liberation that redefines eternity not as endless time in this world, but as freedom from time itself. While many mythical traditions imagine immortality as an inherent trait of gods or monsters, Norse mythology presents a strikingly different proposition: eternal life, not as a birthright, but as the ultimate reward earned through courage and honor on the battlefield. This is the fate of the Einherjar, the chosen slain warriors handpicked by Odin himself to reside in Valhalla, the great hall of the fallen. Theirs is not a passive, peaceful eternity, but a vigorous, purposeful immortality dedicated to preparing for the cataclysmic final battle of Ragnarok. This concept of earned afterlife reveals a profound Norse world view where valor in life directly determines one's status in death, and where even immortality serves a greater cosmic purpose rather than being an end in itself. The selection process for this warrior's paradise was brutally straightforward yet deeply significant. Not every fallen fighter gained entry to Valhalla, only those who died with sword in hand, demonstrating exceptional bravery and martial skill. The Valkyries, Odin's fierce battle maidens, would descend upon the battlefield to choose the most worthy among the slain and escort their spirits to the Great Hall. This system created a powerful incentive for Norse warriors to embrace courage rather than fear death, transforming mortality from an end into a potential doorway to eternal glory. The very word Einherjar translates to those who fight alone or single combatants, emphasizing the individual prowess and self-reliance valued in Norse culture. Their immortality was thus merit-based, a dramatic contrast to the inherent immortality of gods or the cursed eternity of monsters, reflecting a society that prized earned honor above all else. Life, or rather afterlife, in Valhalla was far from a restful retirement. The Einherjar's daily routine was a perpetual cycle of combat and celebration designed to keep them in peak condition for their ultimate destiny. Each day, these immortal warriors would arm themselves and march out into the vast fields surrounding Valhalla to engage in fierce, often fatal combat against one another. They would fight with relentless intensity, hacking each other to pieces in mock battles that mirrored the chaos of Ragnarok itself. Yet come evening, a remarkable transformation would occur. All wounds would miraculously heal, fallen warriors would rise whole again, and any animosity from the day's fighting would vanish completely. This daily death and resurrection served as both training and metaphor, ensuring the Einherjar remained battle-ready while symbolizing the Norse understanding that true strength is forged through repeated overcoming of adversity. After their strenuous day of combat, the warriors would return to Valhalla for a night of legendary feasting that perfectly balanced their daytime exertions. They would dine on the meat of the magical boar Simurgh, which miraculously regenerated each night to be slaughtered and cooked again, providing an endless supply of nourishment. They drank endless mead from the udders of the goat Hydra, who herself fed on the leaves of the world tree Yggdrasil. This cyclical consumption, the boar that constantly regenerates, the goat that produces endless mead, mirrors the Einherjar's own daily cycle of death and rebirth, creating a perfect closed system of eternal preparation. The feasting wasn't merely reward, it was essential maintenance for warriors who needed to preserve their strength and camaraderie for the final confrontation. The ultimate purpose behind this rigorous daily routine reveals the deepest meaning of the Einherjar's immortality. They were not training for personal glory or mere enjoyment of eternal combat. They were preparing to fight alongside the gods during Ragnarok, the apocalyptic battle that would ultimately destroy the current world. Their immortality was thus temporary in the grandest sense, a prolonged preparation for a definitive ending. This creates a fascinating paradox. These warriors achieved eternal life specifically to die again in a final, world-ending conflict. Their existence highlights the Norse acceptance of inevitable endings. Even the gods themselves would perish at Ragnarok, suggesting that true honor lies not in avoiding death, but in facing it courageously when destiny demands. The Einherjar's immortality thus becomes not an escape from mortality but an extension of their mortal purpose, a chance to fulfill their warrior nature on the grandest possible stage. This concept offers a unique perspective on how Norse culture viewed the relationship between life, death, and what comes after. Unlike traditions that promised eternal peace or liberation from suffering, Valhalla offered Vikings an afterlife that amplified their earthly values and skills. The Einherjar continued doing what they did best: fighting, feasting, and forming bonds of camaraderie, suggesting that the ideal afterlife was not a transcendence of human experience, but its perfection and eternal continuation. This reflects a culture that deeply valued earthly virtues and saw no need to abandon them in favor of some more spiritual existence. The warrior's identity, forged in life, would continue to define them through eternity, demonstrating how our deepest values might shape not just how we live but what we believe comes after. While the Einherjar of Valhalla earned their immortality through martial prowess and the Chinese dragon embodied celestial permanence, Japanese folklore offers a creature whose eternal existence is not rooted in power or glory, but in a quiet, compassionate service to humanity's deepest fears. This is the Baku, a peculiar and benevolent being assembled from the parts of various animals, often possessing the trunk of an elephant, the eyes of a rhinoceros, the tail of an ox, the paws of a tiger, and the body of a bear. Unlike the terrifying monsters or majestic gods we've encountered, the Baku's purpose is intimately personal. It is a devourer of nightmares, a consumer of bad dreams. Its form of immortality is perhaps one of the most subtle and profound we've explored. It does not live forever through physical indestructibility or cyclical rebirth, but through the enduring necessity of its function. The Baku exists because human anxiety, fear, and the troubled subconscious exist, making it eternally relevant as long as we close our eyes and dream. The origin of the Baku is a story of divine compassion. According to legend, the various gods had leftover parts after creating all the other animals. Rather than discard these pieces, they assembled them into a new creature and bestowed upon it a unique and vital role: to act as a guardian of the night, protecting sleepers from the torments of their own mind. This genesis immediately sets the Baku apart. It was not born from chaos or conflict, but from a purposeful act of completion and care. It entered the world with a preordained duty, and its entire existence is defined by this service. This reflects a key aspect of Japanese spiritual thought, where value and meaning are often derived from one's role within a larger, harmonious whole. The Baku's immortality, therefore, is not for its own benefit but for the benefit of others, a selfless eternity dedicated to alleviating suffering. The traditional ritual for summoning the Baku is a beautiful illustration of this relationship. A child or anyone plagued by a bad dream would sit up in bed and whisper 3 times into the darkness, "Baku-san, come eat my dream. Baku-san, come eat my dream. Baku-san, come eat my dream." It was believed the creature would then silently appear, draw the nightmare from the dreamer's mind, and consume it, leaving behind peaceful, empty sleep. However, this act of mercy came with a gentle warning found in many folktales. If one called upon the Baku too often, or when the dream wasn't truly a nightmare, the benevolent creature might, out of hunger, devour the dreamer's hopes and desires as well, leaving them feeling empty and listless. This cautionary element adds a layer of nuance, suggesting that while we should seek help in overcoming our fears, we must also be cautious not to outsource all of our emotional labor or avoid confronting our own shadows. The Baku offers relief, not escape, teaching a lesson about balance and the importance of facing some of our own struggles. This concept of functional immortality, where a being persists because it fulfills a constant human need, offers a radically different lens through which to view eternal life. The Baku doesn't need to be invulnerable or possess magical regeneration. Its relevance is secured by the perpetual human experience of fear and anxiety. It is immortal not in its body but in its purpose. This idea resonates deeply with the Japanese aesthetic and philosophical principles of mu-nothingness and ma-negative space, where existence is often defined by relationship and function rather than by solid, independent form. The Baku is immortal because the need for comfort in the dark is immortal. In a modern psychological context, we can see the Baku as a powerful archetype for the coping mechanisms and therapeutic processes we use to manage our anxieties. It externalizes the very human hope that our fears can be taken away, digested by something stronger than ourselves, and transformed into peace. The enduring presence of the Baku in contemporary Japanese culture, from children's toys placed by bedsides to its appearances in anime and video games, proves the success of this functional immortality. It has remained a relevant and comforting figure for centuries because the need it addresses is universal and timeless. In a world where stress and anxiety are ever present, the idea of a gentle creature that can simply take our nightmares away remains powerfully appealing. The Baku's legacy shows us that a mythological being doesn't need to be a fearsome warrior or a powerful god to achieve a form of eternity. It can earn its immortality through kindness, through service, and through an unwavering commitment to soothing the most vulnerable parts of the human spirit. Its eternity is woven into the fabric of our own psychological need, a silent guardian waiting in the shadows between dreams, forever ready to answer a whispered call for help. But what if immortality wasn't a gift or a reward, but a carefully constructed fortress, one with a single, deeply hidden key? This brings us to one of mythology's most intricate and fascinating concepts of eternal life, found in the chilling figure of Koschei the Deathless from Slavic folklore. Unlike the phoenix who embraces rebirth or the Einherjar who earn their place in Valhalla, Koschei achieves his eternal existence through a cunning, almost bureaucratic loophole. He doesn't make himself invulnerable. Instead, he meticulously externalizes his mortality, hiding it far away from his physical body. This creates a unique form of conditional immortality that is both terrifying and strangely reassuring, suggesting that no matter how powerful or eternal a force may seem, it always has a weakness, a secret point of access for those clever enough to find it. The specific mechanism of Koschei's immortality is a masterpiece of folkloric nesting, a Russian doll of vulnerability. His death is not contained within his body but is sequestered inside a needle, which is inside an egg, which is inside a duck, which is inside a hare, which is inside an iron chest, which is buried under a mighty oak tree which stands on a remote and often magical island. This elaborate system is far more than a whimsical detail. It is the entire point of the myth. Each layer represents a challenge to be overcome, a puzzle to be solved. To defeat Koschei, a hero cannot rely on brute force. Confronting him directly is futile, as he is magically immune to all conventional weapons and attacks. Victory requires intelligence, perseverance, and a willingness to embark on a long and difficult quest. The hero must first discover the secret of his mortality, then journey to the remote island, locate the specific tree, unearth the heavy chest, capture the swift hare within, then the duck within the hare, retrieve the fragile egg from the duck, and finally, break the needle inside the egg. Only then does the seemingly invincible Koschei become mortal and meet his end. This narrative structure reveals a profound Slavic worldview regarding power and its inevitable limitations. Koschei is not a god but a powerful sorcerer, often a tsar ruling a distant kingdom, and he is almost always portrayed as a villain who kidnaps princesses and terrorizes the land. His externalized mortality reflects a deep-seated belief that absolute power is inherently unnatural and unstable. It cannot exist without a counterweight, a fatal flaw. By hiding his death, Koschei attempts to cheat the natural order, but the universe, in its wisdom, ensures that his defiance creates its own set of rules. His immortality is not free. It comes with a constant risk of discovery and the precariousness of his death being a physical object that can, theoretically, be found and destroyed. This makes him a prisoner of his own security system, forever vulnerable to the one hero determined enough to follow the trail. The myth also serves as a powerful metaphor for confronting seemingly insurmountable problems in our own lives. Koschei represents those pervasive, entrenched issues that appear invincible when faced head-on: a systemic injustice, a deep-seated addiction, a long-standing personal conflict. Attacking the problem directly, like trying to sword-fight an immortal sorcerer, often only leads to frustration and failure. The story of Koschei teaches the value of strategic thinking and indirect action. It encourages us to look for the root cause, the needle inside the egg, the fundamental leverage point that, if addressed, can make the entire monstrous problem collapse. The quest to find and destroy his death is a lesson in patience and process, emphasizing that solving complex problems requires tackling them step by step, layer by layer, rather than being overwhelmed by their apparent magnitude. Furthermore, Koschei's hidden mortality speaks to a universal human anxiety about the fragility of life and the things we love. We all create our own versions of the nested containers, We invest our sense of security in our jobs, our savings accounts, our relationships, our health, building layers of protection around our well-being. Yet the myth reminds us that these protections, while important, can never make us truly invincible. There is always a potential point of failure, a hidden vulnerability. But this isn't necessarily a message of despair. It's one of humility and awareness. It suggests that recognizing our vulnerabilities is not a weakness but a form of wisdom. Koschei's greatest failure was his arrogance, his belief that he could remove himself completely from the cycle of life and death. His ultimate defeat is a reminder that true strength lies not in constructing an impenetrable fortress, but in understanding and accepting the inherent conditions and limitations of existence. From the conditional immortality of Koschei with his hidden vulnerability, we now journey to the majestic heights of Persian mythology to encounter a being whose eternal existence represents something far more profound than mere indestructibility. Here we find the Simurgh, a creature of such immense age and wisdom that it has watched the entire world cycle through destruction and rebirth not once, not twice, but 3 separate times. This magnificent bird, often depicted with the body of a peacock, the head of a dog, and the claws of a lion, doesn't just live forever. It remembers forever, serving as a living library of all knowledge and experience accumulated across countless ages. Its immortality isn't about defying death, but about transcending time itself through profound understanding, making it one of mythology's most sophisticated concepts of what eternal existence could truly mean. The Simurgh's very nature sets it apart from other immortal beings. Unlike the Hydra's violent regeneration or the Phoenix's cyclical rebirth, the Simurgh's eternity is characterized by patient observation and gradual accumulation. Having witnessed 3 global cataclysms and rebirths, it possesses a perspective that spans eons, understanding patterns and truths that are completely invisible to shorter-lived beings, including gods and humans. This vast temporal perspective transforms the Simurgh from a mere creature into a symbolic embodiment of history itself, the ultimate wise elder who has seen civilizations rise and fall, technologies emerge and vanish, and ideas come full circle repeatedly. Its immortality is thus intellectual and spiritual rather than merely physical. It lives on not because its body cannot be destroyed, but because its knowledge is too valuable to be lost, making it a guardian of cosmic memory. This role as a repository of wisdom naturally cast the Simurgh in the position of guide and protector throughout Persian mythology. In the epic poem The Conference of the Birds by the 12th century poet Farid ad-Din Attar, the Simurgh appears as the ultimate goal of a perilous journey undertaken by the world's birds seeking a true king. After traveling through 7 treacherous valleys representing spiritual challenges like love, understanding, and unity, the surviving birds finally reach the Simurgh's dwelling place, only to discover that the Simurgh, whose name can be interpreted as 30 birds in Persian, is not a separate being but a reflection of their own collective essence. This beautiful allegory suggests that true wisdom and immortality are not external prizes to be won but internal states to be realized through spiritual journey and self-discovery, with the Simurgh representing the divine wisdom that exists within all beings who seek it earnestly. Beyond its spiritual significance, the Simurgh held powerful connections to Persian royalty and national identity. The bird was frequently adopted as a royal symbol, appearing on crowns, thrones, and imperial banners, representing the divine right to rule and the wisdom required for just leadership. Persian kings were expected to embody the Simurgh's qualities: benevolence, protection, and deep understanding, suggesting that true sovereignty required more than military power. It demanded the perspective that comes with wisdom accumulated across generations. The Simurgh's feathers were believed to possess healing properties, and its appearance was often interpreted as an omen of prosperity and protection for the land. further cementing its role as a national guardian whose immortality ensured Persia's enduring cultural and spiritual identity through periods of foreign domination and internal strife. What makes the Simurgh's concept of immortality so compelling is its emphasis on quality of existence rather than mere quantity of years. This is not an immortality of stagnation or endless repetition, but of continuous growth in understanding. Each of the three world cycles the Simurgh witnessed presumably offered different lessons, different patterns of human and divine behavior, allowing it to develop an increasingly nuanced comprehension of existence. This presents a vision of eternity where the value lies not in simply persisting through time, but in using that time to accumulate compassion, insight, and the ability to guide others. The Simurgh doesn't hoard its knowledge but shares it with worthy seekers, acting as a mentor to heroes and a protector of the natural world, suggesting that true immortality is found in what we contribute to the ongoing story of creation rather than in mere self-preservation. This perspective offers a powerful alternative to our common fantasies of eternal life, which often focus on preserving youth or avoiding physical decline. The Simurgh suggests that a meaningful immortality might involve becoming increasingly wise, compassionate, and connected to the deeper currents of existence, even if that means witnessing repeated cycles of destruction and rebirth. Its enduring presence in Persian art, literature, and spiritual thought demonstrates how this concept continues to resonate, offering a vision of eternity that values depth of understanding over endless duration and service to others over mere self-perpetuation. In a world increasingly obsessed with extending our biological lifespan, the Simurgh invites us to consider what kind of wisdom we might accumulate if we truly had forever to learn, and how that accumulated understanding might transform not just ourselves but everyone we touch. While many immortal beings we've encountered are defined by their power or cosmic significance, the Selkies of Celtic and Norse folklore present a more intimate and heartbreaking form of eternal existence, one that is conditional, fragile, and deeply tied to questions of identity, freedom, and belonging. These seal people, who can shed their animal skins to walk on land in human form, inhabit a liminal space between two worlds, never fully mortal nor completely immortal, but forever suspended between these states based on a single, crucial possession, their skin. This unique mythology transforms immortality from an absolute state into a negotiable condition, making the Selkies' story one of the most emotionally resonant and philosophically rich explorations of what it means to be trapped between natures. The mechanics of Selkie immortality are deceptively simple yet profoundly meaningful. In their natural state, Selkies are immortal seals who live in the ocean, aging slowly or not at all, existing in harmony with the sea's eternal rhythms. Their magic lies in their skin. When they remove it, they become beautiful humans who can walk on land, experience human emotions, and engage with mortal life. However, this transformation comes with immense vulnerability. If a human steals and hides their seal skin, the Selkie cannot return to the ocean and becomes trapped in human form, subject to aging, sickness, and eventual death. Their immortality is thus not an inherent quality but a function of their connection to their true element and identity. This creates a powerful metaphor for how our essential nature, our skin, grants us access to our deepest strengths and freedoms, and how losing connection with that core self can make us vulnerable to the hardships of a world not meant for us. The most common Selkie narrative involves a lonely fisherman who, upon discovering a Selkie dancing on the shore in human form, steals her seal skin and forces her to become his wife. These stories are rarely framed as romances but as tragedies of captivity and lost identity. The Selkie wife is often described as a distant, melancholic figure, an excellent mother to her children but always gazing longingly at the sea, her true home just beyond reach. She performs her human duties adequately but never fully engages, her spirit remaining with the ocean waves. This poignant image speaks volumes about the cost of abandoning one's nature for the sake of attachment or security. The Selkies' physical immortality is traded for a mortal life, but her consciousness remains that of an immortal being, creating a profound inner conflict between her temporary human relationships and her eternal oceanic identity. What makes these stories particularly powerful is their ambiguous resolution. In many tales, the Selkie eventually finds her hidden skin, often after years of marriage and children, sometimes with the help of one of her own half-human children who instinctively understands her longing for the sea. The moment of discovery presents her with an impossible choice: return to her immortal life in the ocean, leaving behind everyone she has come to love in her mortal existence, or remain in her human form, knowing she will eventually age and die, forever separated from her true nature. Most versions have her choosing the sea, returning to her immortality but carrying the memory of her mortal life as both a blessing and a wound. This heartbreaking decision reflects the painful truth that some choices between different ways of being are ultimately irreconcilable. We cannot fully inhabit two contradictory natures without sacrificing something essential to ourselves. The Selkie myth resonates so deeply because it externalizes internal conflicts that many humans experience. We may not have literal seal skins, but we all possess aspects of our identity, creative passions, cultural heritage, personal values that feel like our true skin. When we compromise these core elements for relationships, jobs, or social expectations, we can experience a version of the Selkie's melancholy, feeling trapped in a life that doesn't quite fit, longing for a different existence that feels just out of reach. The stolen skin represents how external pressures can separate us from our authentic selves, while the search for the hidden skin mirrors our own journeys of self-rediscovery. The myth validates the profound grief that can accompany even necessary life choices, acknowledging that every path taken means another path forever abandoned. This folklore also offers a subtle commentary on the nature of love itself. The fisherman who steals the Selkie's skin typically does so out of loneliness and desire, believing that possession will lead to connection. Yet his act of theft ensures that any relationship built on this foundation will be inherently unequal and ultimately unfulfilling. He has a wife, but she has a captor. The stories suggest that true connection cannot be based on the suppression of another's nature, but must allow for the freedom of both parties to exist in their wholeness. The Selkie's eventual return to the sea, often after bearing children who inherit her dual nature, suggests that the most meaningful legacy we can leave might not be through perpetuating our presence, but through passing on our authentic qualities to the next generation, who may navigate both worlds more successfully than we could. Yet for all their terrifying power and near invincibility, the Asuras are never truly unstoppable. Their immortality, granted through divine boons, always contains a crucial flaw or loophole, a built-in limitation that ensures cosmic balance can eventually be restored. This brings us to one of the most dramatic examples, the demon Mahishasura, whose name means the buffalo demon. Through intense meditation and austerity, Mahishasura earned a boon from the god Brahma that he could not be killed by any man or any god, making him virtually invincible. Emboldened by this power, he led his armies to conquer the heavens, driving the devas from their celestial abode and plunging the universe into darkness and tyranny. His reign represents the ultimate nightmare scenario, a world where evil has not only triumphed, but has been granted a divine license to operate without consequence, protected by the very rules of the cosmos he sought to destroy. The defeat of Mahishasura did not come through overpowering his immortality, but through transcending its conditions. Faced with a foe who could not be slain by any male deity, the devas combined their divine energies to create a new kind of warrior entirely, the goddess Durga, a fierce and magnificent embodiment of feminine power. To her, each god contributed their most potent weapon. Shiva gave his trident, Vishnu his discus, Indra his thunderbolt, and so on. Armed with these divine instruments and riding a powerful lion, Durga confronted Mahishasura in an epic battle that shook the universe. The demon, confident in his boon granted immortality, continually shifted forms to confuse her, transforming from a buffalo to a lion, then to an elephant, and finally back to a buffalo. But Durga, representing a power beyond the binary categories of male and female, mortal and divine, ultimately pinned him down with her foot and pierced his heart with a trident, ending his tyrannical reign. This victory, celebrated annually during the festival of Navratri, symbolizes more than just the triumph of good over evil. It represents the universe's inherent capacity to generate creative solutions to even the most absolute forms of corruption, ensuring that no power, however immortal, can permanently disrupt the cosmic balance. The stories of the Asuras and their conditional immortality serve a profound narrative purpose beyond mere villainy. These powerful beings act as necessary catalysts for growth, change, and the demonstration of divine virtue. Without a formidable adversary like Ravana, who possessed a boon making him invulnerable to gods and demons, the epic hero Rama would never have embarked on his journey, and his story of righteousness and devotion would remain untold. Without the constant threat of the Asuras challenging their authority, the Devas might become complacent, forgetting their duties as maintainers of cosmic order. The Asuras, in their relentless pursuit of power, force the universe to evolve, adapt, and reveal deeper layers of its own nature. They are the pressure that creates diamonds, the resistance that builds strength, the darkness that makes the light visible. Their immortality ensures that these challenges are not trivial but represent existential threats that demand the fullest expression of courage, wisdom, and creativity from the forces of preservation. This nuanced role makes the Asuras far more than simple antagonists. They are integral participants in the cosmic dance of creation, preservation, and destruction. Their immortality, however fearsome, serves the greater good by providing the friction necessary for spiritual and cosmic evolution. They teach that even negative forces have their place in the grand scheme, that balance requires tension, and that the most meaningful victories often come from overcoming challenges that initially appear insurmountable. In the grand tapestry of Hindu mythology, the Asuras remind us that immortality is never an end in itself, but always a tool that serves a larger purpose, whether for illumination or for shadow, and that the cosmos possesses an infinite capacity to restore harmony through wisdom, adaptability, and the emergence of new forms of consciousness that transcend previous limitations. While many immortal beings we've encountered represent individual eternal life or cyclical rebirth, the Thunderbird of Native American mythology presents a radically different concept of eternity, one where immortality belongs not to a person or creature, but to the unstoppable, eternal forces of nature itself. Across numerous indigenous traditions, from the Lakota to the Ojibwe, the Kwakwaka'wakw to the Menominee, this colossal supernatural bird embodies the raw, untamable power of the storm, its very existence intertwined with the fundamental workings of the natural world. When the Thunderbird flaps its massive wings, the sound echoes across the sky as thunder. When it blinks its glowing eyes, lightning splits the heavens. This isn't merely a magical animal that lives forever. It is the living manifestation of atmospheric violence and regenerative power, an immortal force that operates on a scale far beyond human comprehension or control. What makes the Thunderbird's immortality so distinct is its complete lack of personality or individual narrative compared to other mythical beings. We don't hear stories about the Thunderbird seeking treasure, falling in love, or engaging in personal conflicts like Greek gods or European dragons. Its existence is purely functional, serving as the mechanism through which storms occur, rains fall, and the earth is cleansed and renewed. This impersonal quality reinforces its role as a natural force rather than a character. It doesn't have motivations or desires beyond its purpose within the ecosystem. The Thunderbird simply is, and always has been, and always will be, much like the wind, the seasons, or the cycle of life and death itself. Its eternity is not something it achieved or was granted. It is inherent to its nature as an essential component of reality. This perspective reflects a profound indigenous worldview that places humanity within rather than above a vast and eternal natural order. Where many Western traditions imagine immortal beings that resemble humans with amplified powers, gods who rule from Olympus, or monsters that threaten human societies, the Thunderbird represents something entirely other. A power that was here long before humans arrived and will continue long after we're gone. Humanity doesn't control or command this force. We witness it, respect it, and learn to live in relationship with it. This creates a humbling cosmological framework where immortality isn't a personal attribute to be coveted but a quality of the larger systems that sustain all life, systems that demand our reverence and careful interaction. The Thunderbird's role often extends beyond weather patterns into spiritual and ethical dimensions, particularly in its eternal battle with the great horned serpent or underwater creatures that represent chaos and imbalance. In many traditions, the Thunderbird constantly fights these serpentine beings to maintain cosmic order and protect humanity from their harmful influences. This eternal conflict symbolizes the perpetual struggle between opposing natural forces: sky versus water, order versus chaos, creation versus destruction. A battle that never concludes with a final victory but continues indefinitely as part of the world's fundamental balance. The Thunderbird's immortality thus ensures that this necessary tension persists forever, maintaining the conditions that allow life to flourish. Different nations have developed rich variations on the Thunderbird theme that reveal unique cultural values while maintaining this core concept of natural immortality. For the Lakota, the Wakinian thunder beings are sacred powers that bring both destructive storms and life-giving rain, teaching humans about respect and humility. The Ojibwe tradition tells how the Thunderbirds were created by Gitch Manitou to control the waters and protect people from evil spirits. Among Pacific Northwest tribes, the Thunderbird is often depicted with a whale in its talons, symbolizing its mastery over both sky and sea. These variations demonstrate how a shared understanding of nature's eternal power can be expressed through distinct cultural lenses, each adding layers of meaning while preserving the essential truth that some forces transcend individual existence. The Thunderbird's enduring presence in contemporary indigenous art, ceremonies, and storytelling demonstrates the continued relevance of this ancient concept. Its image adorns totem poles, jewelry, and textiles, not as a relic of the past but as a living symbol connecting people to enduring natural truths. In a modern context, the Thunderbird's immortality takes on new significance as climate change and environmental degradation remind us of nature's ultimate power over human affairs. The concept challenges modern notions of control and superiority, inviting us to see ourselves as participants in an ancient, ongoing relationship with forces far greater than ourselves, forces that were here before us and will remain long after our civilizations have passed. From the eternal natural forces of the Thunderbird, we now turn to a story where immortality is not a gift of nature or the gods, but something crafted by human hands and will, a story that asks one of the most profound questions of all: what is the true difference between being alive and merely being animated? In Jewish folklore, the Golem presents a haunting vision of artificial immortality, a being shaped from inanimate clay and brought to a semblance of life through sacred rituals and the power of holy language. This creature, often created to protect persecuted Jewish communities, stands as a powerful symbol of humanity's ambition to transcend its creative limits, while simultaneously serving as a cautionary tale about the ethical and spiritual dangers of playing God. The traditional process of creating a golem was deeply mystical, drawing on the same divine creative power described in the Book of Genesis. A learned rabbi, often in a state of intense prayer and purification, would sculpt a humanoid figure from river clay. Then, using the secret names of God or specific combinations of Hebrew letters, he would perform a ritual to instill the figure with life. The most famous method involved inscribing the Hebrew word emet, meaning truth, on the golem's forehead. This act channeled a spark of divine creative energy into the clay, causing the figure to rise and obey commands. The golem would be incredibly strong, impervious to pain, and unable to be killed by conventional means, embodying a form of physical immortality and invulnerability. It was the perfect servant and protector, a tireless guardian that could defend a community from pogroms and persecution. Yet, for all its power, this created life was profoundly incomplete, a fact that lies at the very heart of the golem's tragic nature. Despite its physical animation and immense strength, the golem was universally understood to lack a neshama, a soul. It possessed the breath of life, but not the spark of divine consciousness that makes one truly human. This critical distinction is what separates the golem's existence from genuine immortality. It was a creature of pure function, capable of following commands with literal-minded obedience but devoid of free will, emotion, or the capacity for moral reasoning. It might protect a community from external threats, but it could also become a threat itself, as its immense power combined with its inability to understand nuance or context could lead to catastrophic unintended consequences. In the most famous golem narrative, that of Rabbi Judah Loew ben Bezalel of Prague, the creature is said to have initially served its purpose well, patrolling the streets of the Jewish ghetto and keeping its inhabitants safe. But over time, it began to interpret its commands too broadly or literally, eventually running out of control and having to be deactivated by its creator. This inherent lack of soul meant the golem's immortality was a hollow, mechanical thing, a lesson that physical permanence and power are poor substitutes for the richness of a conscious, feeling existence. The golem myth therefore becomes a profound exploration of the boundaries between mortal and immortal existence, and the immense responsibility that comes with the power to create life. The rabbi who brings a golem to life is engaging in an act that mirrors God's creation of Adam, but with a crucial and humbling difference. Where God breathed a living soul into Adam, humanity can only animate a body, creating a powerful tool but not a true person. This distinction serves as a powerful theological and ethical boundary, a reminder that there are realms of creation that belong to the divine alone. The act of creating a golem is not portrayed as a triumph of human ingenuity, but as a desperate measure taken in times of extreme peril, a dangerous tapping into powers that humanity is not spiritually equipped to wield responsibly. The stories almost always end with the golem's deactivation, its body returned to inert clay, often stored in an attic or synagogue geniza where it can be forgotten. This cyclical narrative from dust to life and back to dust reinforces the idea that artificial immortality is ultimately unsustainable and unnatural, a temporary fix that cannot permanently overcome the fundamental order of the world. This folklore resonates powerfully with modern anxieties about artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and other technologies that allow us to create new forms of life or intelligence. The golem is the ultimate prototype, the original story of the created being that turns against its creator or fails to live up to its promise. It asks us to consider what we might lose in the pursuit of power and control. Does creating a perfect servant mean sacrificing something essential about our own humanity? Can a being without a soul, without consciousness, ever truly understand the value of the life it is protecting? The golem's silent, hulking presence in these stories is a constant reminder that the most difficult questions are not about what we can do, but what we should do. Its conditional immortality, entirely dependent on its creator's will and subject to revocation at any moment, highlights the fragility of all such artificial creations and the awesome weight of responsibility placed upon the creator. Ultimately, the golem is a deeply Jewish response to the concept of immortality, reflecting a worldview that values ethical action, communal responsibility, and the sacredness of a soul-filled life over mere physical permanence. It suggests that true value lies not in how long one exists or how powerful one is, but in the quality of one's consciousness and one's capacity for moral choice. The most meaningful form of immortality in this tradition might not be found in extending a single life indefinitely, but in the legacy of wisdom, compassion, and protection one leaves for the community, a legacy that, unlike the golem, is truly alive and continues to grow long after its originator has returned to dust. Long before the magnificent phoenix captured the Greek imagination, an even more ancient and profound symbol of immortality took flight in the sun-baked lands of Egypt. This was the Bennu bird, a divine heron-like creature whose existence was woven into the very fabric of creation itself. While it would later inspire the Greek myth, the Bennu's concept of eternity was far more than cyclical rebirth. It was about being present at the dawn of time, a living embodiment of the first moment of existence and the eternal return of the sun. To understand the Bennu is to peer into the Egyptian soul and its unique vision of cosmic permanence, where immortality was not an escape from death but a harmonious alignment with the universe's most fundamental rhythms. The Bennu's origin story is perhaps the most dramatic of any immortal being we've encountered. It didn't emerge from other gods or creatures, but was believed to have created itself from the heart of nothingness. At the very beginning of time, according to Egyptian cosmology, there was only a vast, dark, and endless ocean of chaos called Nun. From these primordial waters, the first land emerged, a mound of earth known as the Benben Stone. And it was upon this first island of order that the Bennu bird alighted, letting out a piercing cry that shattered the eternal silence and set all of creation into motion. This powerful image establishes the Bennu not merely as a participant in the universe, but as an active agent of creation itself. Its self-creation, or autogenesis, makes it a symbol of ultimate self-sufficiency and primordial power, an entity that exists because it must, because the universe required a catalyst to begin its great unfolding. This is immortality on a cosmic scale, where the creature's existence is synonymous with existence itself. This intimate connection with creation naturally linked the Bennu to the sun god Ra, the most powerful deity in the Egyptian pantheon. The bird was seen as Ra's Ba, or soul manifestation, the living embodiment of his divine life force and creative power. Just as the Bennu's cry initiated time, Ra's journey across the sky defined it, creating the daily cycle of day and night. This is where the concept of solar immortality becomes central. The Egyptians saw the sun's journey not as a linear event but as an eternal cycle of death and rebirth. Each evening, Ra would die, traveling through the treacherous underworld through the night. Each dawn, he would be miraculously reborn, emerging victorious from the darkness. The Bennu, as his soul, represented this perpetual victory of life over death, light over darkness, order over chaos. Its immortality was thus a cosmic guarantee that the sun would always rise again, that the world would not slip back into the watery chaos of Nun. This provided an incredible sense of security and stability, embedding the promise of eternity into the most reliable daily event their world knew, the sunrise. This profound symbolism was physically manifested across Egypt in the form of sacred architecture. The Benben stone, that first mound of creation upon which the Bennu perched, was not just a mythical concept. It became the prototype for the capstones placed atop pyramids and obelisks, structures that were themselves designed as machines for immortality. These stone peaks, often sheathed in gleaming electrum to catch the first and last light of the sun, were literal points of contact between the earthly and the divine realms. Obelisks, towering and impossibly slender, were seen as petrified rays of the sun, with the Benben stone at their apex serving as a perpetual perch for the Bennu's spirit. By building these monuments, the Egyptians weren't just honoring a myth, they were actively participating in the maintenance of cosmic order. Each obelisk was a declaration that the principles of creation, order, light, and life were still held sacred, that the civilization itself was aligned with the eternal cycles represented by the Bennu and Ra. The bird's name itself offers a beautiful linguistic clue to its nature. The root wen in Egyptian means to rise or to shine, connecting it directly to the rising sun and the concept of brilliant illumination. But the Bennu's immortality wasn't just about the sun's daily return. It was also deeply tied to the Egyptian understanding of the human soul and its journey after death. Just as the Bennu was the Ba of Ra, each human was believed to possess their own Ba, a unique spiritual essence that lived on after the body's death. The Bennu thus became a powerful symbol of resurrection and eternal life for the pharaohs, and eventually for all people. In the Book of the Dead, spells call upon the transformative power of the Bennu to ensure the deceased's safe passage and rebirth in the afterlife. The bird's ability to rise again made it the perfect guide for the soul, a divine protector that had mastered the journey through darkness into light. This multifaceted role makes the Bennu one of mythology's most complete representations of immortality. It isn't just one thing. It is the moment of creation, the daily solar cycle, the eternal human soul, and the stone monuments that strive to touch the divine. It connects the vastness of cosmic time with the intimate hope for personal eternity, binding the fate of the universe to the fate of the individual. The Greeks would later adapt this concept into the phoenix, focusing more on the dramatic cycle of fiery death and rebirth. But the original Egyptian Bennu offers a richer, more holistic vision. Its eternity is not a lonely, cyclical struggle but a continuous, joyful participation in the ongoing work of creation, a perpetual affirmation that life, in all its forms, is part of an endless, sacred process that began with a single cry on the first morning of the world. Before the majestic Parthenon and the familiar pantheon of Zeus and his siblings, there existed a much older, much wilder world, a world of raw, untamed forces embodied by the Titans. These primordial beings represent a form of immortality that is not just ancient but fundamentally different from what came after. Theirs was not the refined, personified power of the Olympians. It was an immortality of the earth itself, chaotic, elemental, and tied directly to the most basic components of the universe. They weren't just gods, they were the living, breathing incarnation of mountains, oceans, and stars, possessing a permanence that felt as ancient and unchangeable as the bedrock of the world. This primordial nature defined their unique brand of immortality. Where later gods ruled from a cloud palace and meddled in human affairs, the Titans were the affairs of the cosmos. The eldest among them were literal embodiments of cosmic concepts. Oceanus was the river that encircled the world, Hyperion was the celestial light, Themis was divine law and order, and Mnemosyne was memory itself. Their immortality was not a status they held but an intrinsic part of their being. To imagine an end to Oceanus was to imagine the oceans drying up, a concept so apocalyptic it was nearly unthinkable. This made their power immense but also strangely impersonal. They were forces of nature, less concerned with worship or morality. than with simply existing as the foundational layer of reality. Their indestructibility was a given, a fact of existence as unquestioned as gravity. This static, entrenched order was ultimately challenged by the very thing it produced, a new generation. The Titanomachy, the colossal 10-year war between the Titans and the Olympians, was far more than a simple family feud or a battle for the throne of the cosmos. It was a cosmic revolution, a violent clash between two fundamentally different concepts of power, authority, and what immortality should even mean. On one side stood the Titans, led by the cunning Cronus, who represented the old guard, stability, tradition, and a top-down, unchanging order. Their strength was in their sheer, brute force and their primordial connection to the world's fabric. Arrayed against them were the Olympians, a younger, more dynamic pantheon led by Zeus. They represented a new paradigm, not just raw power but cleverness, strategy, and a vision of authority that involved engagement with the world rather than simply being the world. Crucially, Zeus secured victory not by overpowering the Titans alone but by forging alliances, most importantly with the Cyclopes and the Hecatoncheires, the hundred-handed giants whom the Titans had originally imprisoned in Tartarus. This was a telling strategic move. The Olympians won by leveraging forces that the old order had suppressed and forgotten, symbolizing a shift toward inclusion and tactical intelligence over pure, domineering strength. The aftermath of this war reshaped the Greek understanding of immortality forever. The defeated Titans were not annihilated. Such a thing was likely impossible given their primordial nature, but they were decisively contained, imprisoned deep within the pit of Tartarus, a dungeon as ancient as the cosmos itself, guarded by the very Hecatoncheires they had once locked away. This fate is profoundly significant. It demonstrates that even the most absolute, ancient forms of power and immortality are not immune to being overthrown, managed, or reorganized. The Titans' imprisonment signaled that immortality did not guarantee supremacy. The cosmos could evolve, and with that evolution came new rules. Power could be taken, not just inherited, and authority required more than just ancient, brute force existence. It required wisdom, justice, and the ability to adapt. This generational conflict reflects a deep-seated Greek belief in the inevitable progression of cosmic order from chaos to civilization. The raw, untamed immortality of the Titans was necessary to build the world, but it was not sufficient to rule it wisely. Their overthrow by the Olympians mirrors humanity's own journey from a state of nature to one of law, society, and culture. The Titans, in their eternal imprisonment, became a permanent reminder of the wild, chaotic past that had been subdued to make way for a more structured, though perhaps less primal, world. They represent the immutable foundations upon which the present is built, forever present, forever powerful, but now governed by a newer, more complex order that understands that true, lasting power involves more than just indestructibility. It involves the wisdom to use that power to foster a better, more just world. From the elemental imprisonment of the Titans, we journey now into the enchanted forests and misty highlands of Slavic folklore, where immortality takes on a far more delicate and conditional form. Here, we encounter the Vela, ethereal nature spirits whose eternal existence is not a guaranteed state of being but a careful balance maintained through specific rules and relationships with the natural world. These beings, often described as stunningly beautiful women with long flowing hair who could be seen dancing in forest clearings or guarding mountain peaks, embody a fascinating concept: immortality as a sustained harmony with one's environment, a permanence that can be gained, maintained, or tragically lost based on one's actions and adherence to sacred laws. The Vela's immortality was intrinsically linked to her role as a guardian of the wild places. She wasn't simply a creature that lived in the forest. She was a manifestation of the forest spirit, its health, and its untamed beauty. This connection granted her not just long life but also formidable powers. She could control the weather, summon mists to confuse travelers, heal with magical herbs, and was an unparalleled warrior with a bow that never missed its mark. Her eternal youth and vigor were a direct reflection of the pristine state of her domain. As long as the forest thrived, its waters ran clean, and its creatures were respected, the Vela's power remained unchecked and her immortality secure. This creates a powerful ecological metaphor long before the term was coined. The Vela represents the idea that true, sustainable abundance and continuity are achieved not through defiance of nature's laws, but through perfect alignment with them. Her eternity was a reward for faithful guardianship, a symbiotic relationship where she protected nature and nature, in turn, protected her. This carefully maintained immortality, however, was surprisingly fragile, balanced on a set of specific conditions that could be violated. Unlike Koschei, who deliberately hid his mortality, the Vela's vulnerabilities were woven into the fabric of her existence and her interactions with the mortal world. One of the most common ways a Vela could lose her eternal status was through marriage to a human man. These relationships never ended well. If a mortal man managed to steal a Vela's magical wings or veil, the source of her power, she could be forced into marriage. In this bonded state, she would become increasingly mortal, her magic fading, her health declining, and her connection to the natural world severing. She would age, sicken, and eventually die like any human, but her spirit would often remain restless, unable to return to either realm fully. These stories served as poignant warnings against forcing a connection between different orders of being, and highlighted the tragic cost of sacrificing one's true nature for love or captivity. Beyond romantic entanglements, a Vela's immortality could be shattered by the violation of specific magical laws or through the use of certain weapons. It was believed that a Vela could be killed by a bullet or arrow that had been blessed in a particular way, or one made of a specific material like silver. More significantly, if a Vela broke an oath or promise, a serious transgression against the cosmic order, her protections could vanish, rendering her vulnerable. This emphasis on oath-keeping underscores the Slavic belief that power, even immortal power, must be tempered by honor and responsibility. The Vela's existence was governed by a strict code of conduct, and stepping outside that code had dire, mortal consequences. This presents a nuanced morality tale where immortality is not a right but a privilege earned through ethical behavior and respect for one's own spiritual boundaries. The narratives surrounding the Vela's conditional mortality reveal a profound Slavic world view regarding the permeability between the mortal and immortal realms. Unlike the strict separations found in some mythologies, Slavic folklore suggests a world where these spheres are constantly interacting, influencing one another, and occasionally crossing over. A mortal could, through courage, cunning, or kindness, earn a Vela's favor and receive her protection or a magical gift. Conversely, a Vela could choose to intervene in human affairs for good or ill. This permeability meant that immortality wasn't an entirely separate state, but existed on a spectrum, a potential that could be approached or fallen away from based on one's relationship with the hidden forces of the world. The Vela stands at this threshold, a beautiful and powerful reminder that the sacred is not locked away in a distant heaven, but is immanent in the natural world around us, accessible but demanding respect. Ultimately, the Vela teaches us that the most meaningful forms of permanence might be those we cultivate through our relationships and responsibilities. Her immortality wasn't a solitary achievement but a shared condition, dependent on the health of her ecosystem, her adherence to a moral code, and the respect she received from the mortal world. She could be the eternal guardian of a spring, but only if the spring remained unpolluted. She could be an undying warrior, but only if she fought with honor. This conditional eternity reflects a deeply ecological and ethical consciousness, suggesting that our own legacy, our own version of immortality, might not be measured in years lived, but in the health and harmony we leave behind in our relationships, our communities, and the natural world we are entrusted to protect. The Vela's fragile, beautiful existence reminds us that nothing truly valuable is ever entirely indestructible. It must be nurtured, respected, and guarded, forever balancing on the edge of a delicate and sacred trust. While the Vela's immortality depended on maintaining a delicate balance with nature and the Titan's power was an inherent part of the cosmic fabric, Chinese mythology offers perhaps the most empowering vision of eternal life, one where immortality is not a birthright but an earned achievement, open to anyone with the dedication to pursue it. This is the story of the Eight Immortals, a beloved group of figures who began as ordinary, flawed human beings and through spiritual cultivation, moral living, and a deep alignment with the natural order, ascended to divine status. Their collective journey represents the very heart of Taoist philosophy, transforming the abstract concept of immortality into a practical, attainable goal, a path of self-perfection that lies within reach of every person willing to walk it. What makes the Eight Immortals so profoundly relatable and enduring is their humanity. They weren't born in celestial palaces or sprung from the elements. They were a diverse cross-section of society, including scholars, soldiers, beggars, and aristocrats. Each faced their own very human struggles and weaknesses before achieving enlightenment. This diversity sends a powerful message. The path to immortality isn't reserved for a specific gender, class, or profession. It's a universal potential waiting to be unlocked through personal effort and virtue. Their stories aren't about being chosen by the gods. They're about choosing to become godlike through one's own actions and understanding, making them powerful symbols of self-determination and spiritual optimism. Each of the Eight Immortals followed a distinct path to immortality, showcasing the many ways one can achieve harmony with the Tao or the Way. Take Lu Dongbin, perhaps the most famous of the eight, who was originally a scholar. His path was one of overcoming temptation and mastering the self. After a series of divine dreams, he dedicated himself to Taoist practices, but was tested by a beautiful woman sent to distract him. He passed the test, demonstrating his control over desire, and was rewarded with a magical sword he used to slay dragons and fight evil, symbolizing the cutting away of ignorance and worldly attachments. His story emphasizes that intellectual understanding alone is not enough. Immortality requires the conquest of one's own inner demons. In stark contrast to the scholarly Lu Dongbin is Lai Taiguai, or Iron Crutch Lai, whose path was one of humility and acceptance of imperfection. Originally a handsome and powerful adept, he left his physical body to journey to the heavens. Returning too soon, he found his body had been cremated, forcing his spirit to inhabit the only available vessel, the corpse of a recently deceased lame beggar. Rather than despairing over his disfigured and crippled new form, he embraced it, using his magical powers not for vanity but to heal the sick and help the poor. His gourd, which never empties of medicine, became his symbol, representing the endless well of compassion that can exist within even the most broken-seeming container. His immortality teaches that the spirit matters infinitely more than the physical shell it inhabits. Then there is Xianggu, the only woman among the eight, whose journey highlights a different virtue altogether: purity and devotion. As a young girl, she dreamt of a divine spirit who instructed her to grind a mother-of-pearl stone into powder and swallow it to become light and immortal. She did so, and from that day forward she vowed to remain unmarried, dedicating her life to wandering the mountains, living on moonbeams and powdered mother-of-pearl. She is often depicted holding a lotus flower, a symbol of purity that rises untainted from the mud, or a magical lotus blossom that grants immortality. Her path shows that dedication to a spiritual goal, free from worldly attachments like marriage and family, is a valid and powerful route to eternal life, offering a model of feminine spiritual authority that stands apart from traditional roles. The remaining immortals each contribute their own unique lesson. Zhongli Quan, a former general, found enlightenment after a military defeat, teaching that true power comes from abandoning worldly ambition for alchemical wisdom. Cao Guojiu, a relative of an emperor, achieved immortality by renouncing his corrupt family and pursuing a life of humble virtue. Lan Ke, an androgynous street performer whose gender remains fluid and undefined, attained immortality through childlike simplicity and eccentricity, reminding us that enlightenment can come through rejecting social norms altogether. Han Xiangzi, a scholar who disliked study, was taught by his immortal uncle that true knowledge comes from aligning with nature, not books. Finally, Zhang Guolao, an elderly trickster mage, embodies the joy and wonder of the path, riding a magical white mule that could travel thousands of miles and be folded up and stored in a box when not in use. Together, these 8 figures form a complete spiritual roadmap. They don't just represent 8 different people, they represent 8 essential qualities: wisdom, humility, purity, detachment, virtue, simplicity, harmony, and joy that, when combined, lead to immortality. They are almost never worshipped individually but always as a group, because it is the synthesis of all these paths that creates the complete immortal being. This is why they are such a popular motif in art and literature. They are a constant reminder that spiritual perfection is a multifaceted endeavor. Their enduring appeal lies in this message of radical hope. The 8 Immortals democratize eternity. They prove that you don't need divine parents or a magical birth to live forever. You can start right where you are with whatever flaws and circumstances you have, and through ethical living, meditation, and seeking harmony with the natural flow of the universe, you can transform your very essence. They represent the ultimate Taoist ideal, that by understanding the Tao and aligning with it, a human being can not only transcend death but can also become a benevolent force in the world, using their hard-won powers to spread healing, joy, and wisdom for all time. From the human-earned immortality of the 8 Immortals, we now venture into a realm where eternal existence is neither a reward nor an achievement, but simply the natural state of an entirely different order of being. In the rich tapestry of Islamic mythology, we encounter the Ifrit, a powerful and often fearsome class of jinn whose very essence is woven from smokeless fire, granting them lifespans so vast they border on the immortal. Their existence opens a fascinating window into a cosmological vision where eternity is not a singular destination but a varied experience, dependent on the fundamental nature of the creature itself, existing in a parallel world that intersects with our own in mysterious and sometimes perilous ways. To understand the Ifrit's unique form of immortality, we must first grasp the Islamic concept of creation, which presents 3 sentient beings forged from distinct elements. According to tradition, angels were created from light, humans were shaped from clay, and the jinn, a category that includes the Ifrit, were brought into being from a scorching, smokeless fire. This elemental origin is not merely poetic, it defines their entire nature. The Ifrit's immense power, long life, and fiery temperament are all direct consequences of the substance from which they were made. Their immortality is therefore innate and natural, a standard condition of their species rather than something extraordinary or sought after. This stands in stark contrast to many other mythological traditions, where immortality is a rare prize, a cursed state, or a divine reward. For the Ifrit, living for centuries is simply what it means to be an Ifrit. Much like an eagle is naturally equipped to soar, it requires no special explanation or justification. This elemental nature places the Ifrit in a complex spiritual ecosystem, existing in a world that runs parallel to our own, often unseen but occasionally crossing into human affairs. Islamic theology describes the jinn as beings with free will, much like humans, capable of choosing between good and evil, faith and disbelief. This means an Ifrit can be a malevolent trickster, a neutral force, or even a devout believer. Their long lives allow them to accumulate immense knowledge, power, and often a profound arrogance. They are known for their cunning, their ability to shapeshift, and their talent for crafting elaborate illusions to deceive or test humans. Their near immortality affords them a perspective that is vast and often inscrutable to short-lived humans, making them formidable and unpredictable beings whose motives can be difficult to discern. Yet for all their power and longevity, the Ifrit's immortality is not absolute. Their existence is conditional and subject to specific rules within the cosmic order. Despite being made of fire, they can be bound, contained, or even destroyed through spiritual means. The most potent weapon against a malevolent Ifrit is not a physical sword but the invocation of divine names and the recitation of specific verses from the Quran. This reveals a crucial aspect of Islamic thought. No creature, no matter how powerful or long-lived, exists outside the authority of the divine. An Ifrit's fiery essence and near-eternal lifespan do not make it a god. It remains a created being, ultimately subject to the same divine laws as humanity. Their immortality, therefore, does not equate to invincibility. It simply means their struggle between good and evil, their test of faith, is played out over a much longer time frame. This nuanced view offers a profound commentary on the relationship between power, time, and morality. The Ifrit's long life does not automatically grant it wisdom or virtue. In fact, its extended lifespan can amplify its flaws. A proud Ifrit has centuries to nurse a grudge, a cruel one has ages to refine its torment, and a wise one has millennia to accumulate benevolence. Their stories often serve as cautionary tales about the corrupting nature of power unchecked by humility and the importance of submitting one's will to a higher authority, regardless of one's station or strength. The Ifrit embodies the idea that immortality alone is not a path to enlightenment. It is merely more time in which to choose one's path, for better or for worse. Ultimately, the Ifrit presents a vision of immortality that is deeply integrated into a holistic and orderly universe. Their eternal existence is not an anomaly to be explained, but a natural part of a creation filled with diverse beings, each with its own purpose and duration. They remind us that eternity can wear many faces, some beautiful, some terrifying, and that a long life, in and of itself, is neither a blessing nor a curse. It is simply a condition, a canvas upon which a being paints its character through countless choices and actions, proving that the true measure of any existence, whether fleeting or forever, is not its length but its depth and its direction. Leaving behind the fiery essence of the Ifrit, we now travel to the ancient jungles and highlands of Mesoamerica, where immortality takes on a form that is deeply intertwined with identity, transformation, and the very soul's connection to the natural world. Here, in the traditions of the Aztec, Maya, and other indigenous cultures, we encounter the enigmatic figure of the Nagual, a sorcerer, a shaman, or a spiritual being whose power lies not in defying death, but in transcending the boundaries of a single, fixed existence. This is not an immortality of endless years in a single form, but an eternity of expanded experience, achieved through the profound ability to shed one's human skin and inhabit the body and spirit of an animal companion. The Nagual's power redefines what it means to live forever, suggesting that true eternity might be found not in duration, but in depth and diversity of being. At the heart of this concept is the idea of the tonal and the Nagual, a foundational duality in many Mesoamerican cosmologies. The tonal is one's day spirit, the public personality, the human self that navigates the ordinary social world. It is the part of you that is fixed, your birth date and your conventional fate. The Nagwal, by contrast, is the night spirit, the hidden, wild, and magical counterpart, the essential, untamed energy that exists beyond the social self. A powerful shaman, or a person born under certain sacred signs, was believed to have a particularly strong connection to their Nagwal, often manifesting as a specific animal double like a jaguar, an eagle, a coyote, or even a powerful weather phenomenon like a whirlwind. This wasn't just a symbolic connection, it was a literal spiritual kinship. The Nagwal practitioner could consciously project their awareness into this animal double, seeing through its eyes, running with its legs, and hunting with its instincts. In this way, their consciousness, their essential self, could live multiple lives simultaneously, experiencing the world as both human and beast. This is the core of their immortality, a perpetual expansion of self rather than a mere extension of a single life. This transformative ability granted the Nagwal a form of immortality that was both practical and profoundly spiritual. By moving between forms, they could access knowledge and perspectives closed off to ordinary humans. They could travel vast distances as a bird, gather secrets as a silent predator in the night, or draw upon the primal strength of a jaguar. This wasn't a parlor trick. It was a sacred technology for navigating the complexities of the visible and invisible worlds. Their extended lifespans or perceived immortality were a byproduct of this expanded state of being, because their consciousness was not confined to a single, fragile human body. The death of their physical form did not necessarily mean the end of their existence. Their essence could persist within their animal companion or within the spiritual force they represented, allowing them to guide, protect, or even menace their communities for generations. This form of eternity is less about a single soul persisting through time and more about a consciousness that becomes a permanent, versatile thread in the fabric of the living world. The social role of the Nagwal was deeply ambiguous, reflecting the dual nature of the power itself. On one hand, a Nagwal could be a tremendous force for good, a village protector, a healer who journeyed into the spirit world to retrieve lost souls, or a wise leader whose animal wisdom guided their people through times of crisis. Their ability to transform was a mark of immense spiritual attainment, a sign that they had mastered the balance between the human realm and the wild, divine forces of nature. On the other hand, this very power could be terrifying. A Nagwal could just as easily be a malevolent witch, using their animal form to steal, curse, or spread disease among their enemies. This duality underscores that the immortality of the Nagwal was not inherently good or evil. It was simply power-amplified consciousness that could be wielded for whatever purpose its holder chose. It was a responsibility that demanded wisdom and balance, for the line between a benevolent spiritual guide and a predatory monster was as thin as the boundary between human and animal. This tradition offers a radical and beautiful perspective on our relationship with mortality. The Nagwal does not seek to avoid the end of life, but to so thoroughly saturate their existence with life in all its forms that the end of one particular expression becomes almost irrelevant. Their goal is not to stop the clock, but to step outside of its linear track altogether, to live in a richer, more complex timescape where a single lifetime can encompass the experience of multiple creatures. This philosophy invites us to consider our own potential for immortality. Perhaps it doesn't lie in trying to preserve our current selves indefinitely, but in how completely we can connect with the world around us, how deeply we can empathize with other forms of life, how widely we can expand our understanding, and how meaningfully we can weave our consciousness into the enduring patterns of nature, community, and spirit. The Nagwal's legacy suggests that the most profound way to live forever is not to last, but to become more. In the rich spiritual landscape of Buddhism, even the most powerful mythical beings are reinterpreted through the lens of enlightenment and the cessation of suffering. This brings us to the Garuda, a magnificent divine bird whose very existence is redefined not as a celebration of physical immortality, but as a soaring metaphor for the ultimate freedom from the cycle of rebirth itself. This is a radical departure from the creatures we've encountered. The Garuda's power isn't about living forever in a worldly sense, but about achieving a state of being so liberated that the very concepts of life, death, and eternity are transcended. Its story shows us how Buddhist philosophy takes ancient mythical archetypes and infuses them with profound new meaning, transforming a symbol of physical power into a guide for spiritual awakening. The Garuda's origins are as dramatic as its appearance. In both Hindu and Buddhist traditions, it is born from a cosmic egg, a being of immense power and speed, often depicted with a golden body, white face, red wings, and the beak of an eagle. But from the very beginning, its narrative is intertwined with a central, defining conflict, an eternal enmity with the Nagas, the serpent beings. In most mythologies, such a feud might be about territory or revenge, but in the Buddhist context, this conflict is deeply allegorical. The Nagas, dwelling in water and often guarding earthly treasures, represent the clinging attachments, the desires, and the ignorance that keep souls trapped in the endless cycle of samsara, the wheel of birth, death, and rebirth. The Garuda, as their natural predator, embodies the fierce, discerning wisdom that seeks out and destroys these very obstacles to enlightenment. Each time the Garuda snatches a Naga, it isn't merely an act of violence. It is a symbolic victory of higher consciousness over base desire, of clarity over delusion. This celestial battle reveals the core of the Garuda's unique form of immortality. It is not an indestructible body that makes the Garuda immortal, but its role in the cosmic process of liberation. Its existence is dedicated to the eradication of the mental poisons that cause all suffering, desire, hatred, and ignorance. In this sense, the Garuda is immortal because the quest for enlightenment is eternal and universal. It represents the relentless, powerful aspect of our own mind that strives for freedom, the part of us that refuses to be satisfied with temporary pleasures and instead seeks the deathless state of nirvana. Its flight through the heavens is the journey of a mind ascending above the muddled waters of attachment, seeing reality with the piercing clarity of a bird of prey. Perhaps the most profound evolution of the Garuda myth within Buddhism is its own path to enlightenment. In some Vajrayana Buddhist traditions, the Garuda is not just a symbol or a tool for the gods, it is itself a Buddha, a fully awakened being. There are meditative practices centered on the Garuda, where practitioners visualize themselves transforming into this majestic bird, not to gain physical power, but to cultivate its qualities. Its fearless speed in cutting through illusion, its vast perspective from soaring above worldly concerns, and its power to neutralize the poisons of negative emotions and mental afflictions. The Garuda, in this context, becomes a divine prototype for the practitioner, demonstrating that even the most powerful and seemingly wrathful energies can be channeled toward the ultimate goal of compassion and wisdom. Its immortality is thus perfected. It is no longer just a force fighting against something, but a fully realized state of blissful, awakened activity for the benefit of all beings. This transformation offers a breathtakingly different answer to humanity's ancient longing for eternity. The Garuda teaches that true immortality isn't found in extending our time within a cycle of suffering, but in breaking the cycle entirely. It redefines the quest from "how can I live forever" to "how can I be free?" Its story assures us that the tools for this liberation are already present within us: the fierce determination to be free, the discerning wisdom to see through our illusions, and the compassionate activity that arises when we are no longer bound by our own selfish desires. The Garuda doesn't promise us endless years, but something far greater, an end to the reasons we fear the end of years. It represents the ultimate victory, not over death, but over the suffering that makes death a thing to be feared. While other immortals rely on physical indestructibility or divine boons, there exists a being whose eternity is woven from something far more delicate yet infinitely more durable, the very fabric of storytelling itself. This is Anansi the spider, a trickster god whose origins lie in the rich oral traditions of the Akan people in West Africa, and whose journey across the Atlantic during the transatlantic slave trade transformed him into a pan-African symbol of resilience, wit, and cultural survival. Anansi's immortality is not written in stone or sealed by magic. It is spoken, whispered, and sung into existence with each new generation that gathers to hear a tale that begins, "Once upon a time, Anansi did." At his core, Anansi is a paradox, a creature both divine and deeply flawed, a symbol of creation and chaos. He is not a noble hero to be emulated, but a relatable, often selfish character whose clever plans frequently backfire with hilarious results. In one famous tale, he tries to hoard all the world's wisdom in a pot, only to realize that true wisdom cannot be contained but must be shared and applied. In another, his greed gets the better of him when he tries to feast on a magical gum doll, only to become stuck to it, being caught in the very act of his own theft. These stories don't celebrate perfection. They celebrate ingenuity, adaptability, and the sheer will to survive against overwhelming odds. It is precisely through these human-like failings and his subsequent cunning escapes that Anansi became so beloved. He reflected the realities of his audience, the need to use one's wits to navigate a world of powerful, often oppressive forces. His immortality was earned not by being above humanity, but by being so thoroughly, comically, and brilliantly of it. The true engine of Anansi's eternal life was the horrific Middle Passage. Enslaved Africans, stripped of their physical possessions, their families, and their freedom, managed to preserve one sacred thing: their stories. Anansi, the small and seemingly powerless spider who could outsmart larger animals and even gods, became the perfect vessel for their hopes and resistance. In the brutal conditions of plantations in the Caribbean and the Americas, telling an Anansi story was an act of cultural defiance. It was a way to assert identity, to mock the powerful through allegory, and to teach children covert lessons about survival and subversion under the watchful eyes of oppressors. In Jamaica, he became Anansi. In the Suriname, he transformed into Aunt Nancy. With each telling, his stories adapted, absorbing new settings, new challenges, and new layers of meaning, proving that a culture, though displaced, could not be erased. His immortality became inextricably linked to the survival and evolution of the African diaspora itself. This process of adaptation didn't stop with oral tradition. In the 20th and 21st centuries, Anansi has continued his journey, seamlessly leaping from folk tales into comic books, novels, and television shows. Neil Gaiman featured him as Mr. Nancy in his novel American Gods, a charming, ancient deity still working his tricks in the modern world. Authors like Neil Gaiman and Jamaica Kincaid have reintroduced him to literary audiences, while animated series have brought his misadventures to life for children globally. Each adaptation is not a dilution of the original myth, but a new thread in his ever-growing web, a testament to his story's incredible flexibility and timeless relevance. He is no longer just a West African folk hero. He is a global icon, demonstrating that a character can remain fundamentally unchanged in spirit while being infinitely variable in form. This unique form of immortality offers a profound and democratic alternative to the myths of invulnerable bodies and magical elixirs. Anansi suggests that the most lasting legacy is not written in stone or guarded in a fortress. but lives in the breath between a storyteller and their audience. His eternity is participatory. It requires active engagement to sustain. He lives only as long as we remember to tell his tales, to laugh at his failures, and to learn from his clever, complicated victories. In a world increasingly focused on digital preservation and biological life extension, Anansi's legacy is a powerful reminder that an idea, a story, or a piece of wisdom, once set free in the world, can achieve a life far longer and more vibrant than any single physical form. He embodies the ultimate triumph of the underdog, the proof that even the smallest, most vulnerable creature can become eternal, not by force, but by fascination, leaving a legacy that is retold, reimagined, and relived forever. Yet for all their terrifying power and near invincibility, the Asuras are never truly unstoppable. Their immortality, granted through divine boons, always contains a crucial flaw or loophole, a built-in limitation that ensures cosmic balance can eventually be restored. This brings us to one of the most dramatic examples, the demon Mahishasura, whose name means the buffalo demon. Through intense meditation and austerity, Mahishasura earned a boon from the god Brahma that he could not be killed by any man or any god, making him virtually invincible. Emboldened by this power, he led his armies to conquer the heavens, driving the devas from their celestial abode and plunging the universe into darkness and tyranny. His reign represents the ultimate nightmare scenario, a world where evil has not only triumphed but has been granted a divine license to operate without consequence, protected by the very rules of the cosmos he sought to destroy. The defeat of Mahishasura did not come through overpowering his immortality but through transcending its conditions. Faced with a foe who could not be slain by any male deity, the devas combined their divine energies to create a new kind of warrior entirely, the goddess Durga, a fierce and magnificent embodiment of feminine power. To her, each god contributed their most potent weapon. Shiva gave his trident, Vishnu his discus, Indra his thunderbolt, and so on. Armed with these divine instruments and riding a powerful lion, Durga confronted Mahishasura in an epic battle that shook the universe. The demon, confident in his boon granted immortality, continually shifted forms to confuse her, transforming from a buffalo to a lion, then to an elephant, and finally back to a buffalo. But Durga, representing a power beyond the binary categories of male and female, mortal and divine, ultimately pinned him down with her foot and pierced his heart with a trident, ending his tyrannical reign. This victory, celebrated annually during the festival of Navratri, symbolizes more than just the triumph of good over evil. It represents the universe's inherent capacity to generate creative solutions to even the most absolute forms of corruption, ensuring that no power, however immortal, can permanently disrupt the cosmic balance. The stories of the Asuras and their conditional immortality serve a profound narrative purpose beyond mere villainy. These powerful beings act as necessary catalysts for growth, change, and the demonstration of divine virtue. Without a formidable adversary like Ravana, who possessed a boon making him invulnerable to gods and demons, the epic hero Rama would never have embarked on his journey, and his story of righteousness and devotion would remain untold. Without the constant threat of the Asuras challenging their authority, the devas might become complacent, forgetting their duties as maintainers of cosmic order. The Asuras, in their relentless pursuit of power, force the universe to evolve, adapt, and reveal deeper layers of its own nature. They are the pressure that creates diamonds, the resistance that builds strength, the darkness that makes the light visible. Their immortality ensures that these challenges are not trivial but represent existential threats that demand the fullest expression of courage, wisdom, and creativity from the forces of preservation. This nuanced role makes the Asuras far more than simple antagonists. They are integral participants in the cosmic dance of creation, preservation, and destruction. Their immortality, however fearsome, serves the greater good by providing the friction necessary for spiritual and cosmic evolution. They teach that even negative forces have their place in the grand scheme, that balance requires tension, and that the most meaningful victories often come from overcoming challenges that initially appear insurmountable. In the grand tapestry of Hindu mythology, the Asuras remind us that immortality is never an end in itself, but always a tool that serves a larger purpose, whether for illumination or for shadow, and that the cosmos possesses an infinite capacity to restore harmony through wisdom, adaptability, and the emergence of new forms of consciousness that transcend previous limitations. From the cosmic battles of Hindu mythology, we now turn to a far more intimate and chilling vision of eternal life, one that twists the very idea of immortality into a gothic nightmare of endless craving and profound isolation. The European vampire embodies a concept of eternity that is the exact opposite of a divine reward. It is a curse, a perpetual punishment that transforms the desire for everlasting life into a horrifying prison of the soul. Unlike the Asuras who wield their power with ambition or the phoenix that is reborn in glory, the vampire is condemned to an existence of shadow and thirst, forever separated from the warmth of the sun and the comforting rhythms of human life. This creature's immortality is not a triumph over death but a grotesque parody of life, a constant reminder of what it means to be trapped in a body that will not die but can never truly live. The vampire's specific vulnerabilities are not random weaknesses but deeply symbolic elements that define its cursed state. Sunlight, the universal symbol of life, health, and revelation, becomes anathema to the vampire, forcing it to dwell in darkness and concealment. This banishment from the day represents a fundamental separation from the natural world and its cycles. Garlic, a traditional folk remedy with purifying properties, and holy water, representing divine grace, repel the creature, highlighting its unnatural, corrupted state and its alienation from both healing and holiness. The wooden stake through the heart is perhaps the most potent symbol of all, a brutal, visceral return to the finality of death that the vampire has cheated, a forceful reassertion of the natural order that the creature has defied. These vulnerabilities create a being in a state of perpetual conflict with its own existence, possessing immense power yet constrained by a web of precise and humiliating limitations. The vampire is simultaneously superhuman and subhuman, a predator that is also a prisoner of its own condition. This cursed immortality is almost always portrayed as a source of profound loneliness and psychological torment. Vampire narratives, from the Slavic folklore of the Strigoi to Bram Stoker's Dracula, are saturated with themes of isolation and longing. The vampire watches from the shadows as generations of mortals live, love, and die, forever an outsider to the very experiences it once knew. It is driven by an insatiable hunger that can never be fully satisfied, a thirst that reduces all human connection to the level of predation. This eternal hunger transforms the vampire's existence into a constant, desperate search for sustenance, making it a slave to its own base needs. Any love or friendship it attempts is ultimately poisoned by this necessity, as those it cares for are either consumed or transformed into Chinese letter CURSED beings, perpetuating the cycle of isolation. The vampire's immortality, therefore, becomes the ultimate engine of its own misery, guaranteeing that its existence will be an endless repetition of desire, acquisition, and loss. These stories emerged from and reflected deep-seated European cultural anxieties, particularly surrounding disease, death, and desire. During times of plague, when communities were decimated by inexplicable illnesses, the vampire myth provided a framework for understanding the sudden, mysterious death of loved ones and the fear of them returning to spread the contagion. The vampire's need to prey upon its own family and neighbors mirrored the terrifying, intimate way diseases could sweep through a village. Furthermore, the vampire became a powerful symbol for repressed desires and taboo passions. The aristocratic figure preying upon innocent victims tapped into anxieties about class, sexuality, and the corrupting influence of forbidden appetites. The vampire was the ultimate outsider, wealthy, powerful, sexually magnetic, and utterly damned, representing both the allure and the terrifying consequences of transgressing social and natural laws. Ultimately, the European vampire stands as one of mythology's most potent cautionary tales about the desire for eternal life. It forces us to ask a terrifying question: what if we got what we wished for, only to discover that forever was a sentence rather than a reward? The vampire's story warns that immortality without meaning, without connection, and without a place in the natural order is the worst fate imaginable. It is a lesson in appreciating the beauty and necessity of life's limitations: the setting sun, the fading breath, the finite number of days that give each moment its precious weight. The vampire, in all its glamorous, tragic horror, teaches us that a life without end would be meaningless without the things that make life worth living: the warmth of the sun on our skin, the comfort of shared meals, and the peaceful certainty that every story, no matter how grand, must eventually find its rest. Having journeyed through the unique immortal beings of individual cultures, a fascinating pattern begins to emerge when we pull back to a global scale, particularly through the lens of one mythical creature that appears across the world yet embodies startlingly different visions of eternity: the dragon. This magnificent beast serves as a perfect mirror, reflecting the deepest values and fears of the societies that imagined it, especially when it comes to their conceptions of immortality. By placing the Eastern and Western dragon side by side, we witness a dramatic divergence in what eternal life can represent, revealing a fundamental philosophical split in how humanity views its relationship with power, nature, and time itself. In the vast tapestry of Asian mythology, particularly within Chinese tradition, the dragon is a creature of profound benevolence and cosmic order. Known as the Long, it is a composite being, harmoniously formed from the parts of 9 different animals, symbolizing its connection to all of nature. Its immortality is not one of brute physical indestructibility but of celestial permanence. The Chinese dragon is an eternal part of the universe's fabric, a divine force controlling the rains, rivers, and seasons. It does not hoard treasure or destroy kingdoms. Instead, it ensures the fertility of the land and the prosperity of the people. Its eternal existence is a gift, a blessing of balance and harmony. Emperors wrap themselves in the dragon's image, not just to claim its power, but to align themselves with its righteous, everlasting mandate to rule with wisdom. Here, immortality is synonymous with enlightened responsibility, a never-ending duty to maintain the equilibrium between heaven and earth. The dragon's longevity is a reward for its virtue, its power derived from its perfect alignment with the Tao, the eternal way of the cosmos. Now cross the continent to Europe, and the dragon transforms into something entirely different. Here, the dragon is not a celestial benefactor but a terrestrial terror. It is a beast of pure, destructive avarice, a monstrous reptile that hoards gold, virgins, and treasure in a dank cave or a mountain lair. Its immortality is one of sheer, stubborn persistence, a physical invulnerability that must be overcome by a hero's strength or cunning. Think of Fafnir from Norse legend, a dwarf so consumed by greed he transformed into a dragon to better guard his ill-gotten gold, or the countless dragons slain by knights like St. George. This dragon's eternal life is not spent in harmonious service but in isolated, paranoid accumulation. Its longevity is a curse of endless wanting, a perpetual state of lack despite its piles of wealth. It represents a fear of eternal life as stagnation and greed, an endless extension of base desires without growth, wisdom, or connection. To defeat this dragon is not just to win treasure, but to liberate the land from a symbol of deathless tyranny, to reassert the natural cycle of life and death that the dragon's unnatural existence disrupts. This stark contrast is no accident. It is a direct reflection of the cultural soil from which each myth grew. In the East, with philosophies like Taoism and Confucianism emphasizing harmony, collective good, and alignment with natural forces, immortality became an ideal state of wise balance. The dragon embodies this perfectly. In the West, with its themes of individualism, conquest, and an often more adversarial relationship with nature, immortality was often viewed with suspicion, a potential corruption, a temptation that could lead to tyranny or a separation from the human community. The dragon became the perfect vessel for these anxieties, a warning that living forever could mean being trapped forever in our worst instincts. Yet, beyond this simple East-West binary, the global dragon reveals even more nuances. In Mesoamerican cultures like the Aztec, the feathered serpent god Quetzalcoatl represents a blend of these ideas, a creator deity associated with wind, wisdom, and life itself, whose cyclical return promises renewal. In the Slavic Zme, we find a dragon that is often a shape-shifting trickster, blurring the lines between monster and wise spirit. This incredible diversity shows that the dragon is not a single archetype, but a blank canvas upon which every culture paints its own deepest hopes and fears about power, time, and what it truly means to live forever. Whether as a wise guardian or a greedy hoarder, the dragon remains our most powerful symbol for working through the ultimate question. If we could live forever, what kind of forever would we choose to live? But the ancient yearning to transcend death never truly vanished. It simply found new layers to inhabit. Our modern world, with its gleaming technology and existential anxieties, has become a fertile new hunting ground for immortal beings who have shape-shifted once again to stalk the pages of our novels and the glow of our screens. These contemporary reimaginings are far more than just recycled myths. They are a vital, ongoing conversation, using the language of fantasy and science fiction to grapple with the very real dilemmas of our time. The vampire is no longer just a folkloric monster rising from the grave. In shows like True Blood and What We Do in the Shadows, it becomes a complex metaphor for otherness, addiction, and the struggle for civil rights in a world that fears what it doesn't understand. Its immortality is a lens through which we examine the politics of identity and the eternal human tendency to create insiders and outsiders. The superhero genre, particularly the sprawling cosmos of Marvel, has become a primary arena for exploring modern immortality. The Asgardians, like Thor and Loki, are literally presented as gods, yet their eternal lives are fraught with very human problems: family drama, the weight of legacy, and the boredom that comes with centuries of existence. Their stories ask us what happens when gods have midlife crises, and whether a lifespan measured in millennia inevitably leads to arrogance and a disconnect from those you are meant to protect. Conversely, a character like Wolverine possesses a powerful regenerative immortality that feels less like a gift and more like a curse, condemning him to outlive everyone he loves and endure every physical trauma forever. This reflects a very modern, almost scientific anxiety about the potential downsides of biological life extension. Would we truly want to live forever if it meant accumulating an eternity of pain and loss? Perhaps the most poignant modern interpretations come from stories that directly connect mythical immortality to our technological aspirations. The endless quest for the Philosopher's Stone, the historical stand-in for an immortality elixir, is mirrored in today's Silicon Valley billionaires investing fortunes into biotech ventures aimed at cheating death. Narratives like Altered Carbon explore the implications of digital immortality, where human consciousness can be downloaded into new bodies or sleeves. This doesn't solve the problem of eternity. It simply reframes it, creating a world where the wealthy can live forever while the poor remain mortal, thus inventing a new, terrifying form of inequality that stretches across centuries. Here, the age-old myth of the immortal becomes a sharp critique of our current trajectory, questioning whether we are ethically prepared for the power we so desperately seek. Even children's literature powerfully carries these ancient themes forward. J.K. Rowling's Phoenix Fox is a direct descendant of the Egyptian Bennu and Greek Phoenix, embodying the same beautiful cycle of fiery death and renewal. Its tears have healing powers, and its song brings courage to the pure of heart. In the Harry Potter series, the Phoenix's immortality is presented as a pure and benevolent force, a symbol of hope and resilience in the face of darkness. Its presence reassures young readers that even from devastating loss, new life and strength can emerge, teaching a new generation the same comforting lesson that ancient civilizations found in the myth of cyclical rebirth. This demonstrates the timeless utility of these creatures. They are vessels for our most profound hopes and fears, adaptable enough to teach simple lessons about courage to children while simultaneously helping adults navigate the complex ethical landscape of a rapidly changing world. The undeniable persistence of these figures proves that our fascination is not just about the mechanics of living forever. It is a deep, intrinsic part of the human condition to question our limits and dream of what lies beyond. The immortal creatures of our modern stories are the evolved descendants of their mythological ancestors, but they are on the same eternal quest. They are our proxies, allowing us to safely explore the terrifying and exhilarating question of what it would mean to never die, to test the consequences of eternal power, and to ultimately remind ourselves that the value of a life may not be found in its length, but in its depth, its connections, and its meaning. They are the mirrors in which we see our own ambitions reflected, and sometimes they show us monsters we did not expect to see. And so we arrive at the heart of the matter, the profound and enduring question that has echoed through every story we've explored. Why? Why have humans across every continent and every era of history been so captivated by the idea of creatures that never die? The answer, it seems, is not really about the creatures themselves. These immortal beings, from the benevolent Simurgh to the cursed vampire, are not just monsters or marvels, they are mirrors. They reflect our own deepest fears about the fragility of life, our most desperate hopes for something more, and our complex, often contradictory, relationship with the one certainty we all face, our own mortality. These myths are far more than simple escapism or fanciful storytelling. They are a fundamental part of how we process the human condition. When we tell the story of the phoenix, we aren't just describing a bird that bursts into flame. We are giving voice to our own incredible capacity for resilience, our ability to find hope and rebuild our lives from the ashes of personal tragedy. The tale of Koschei the Deathless, with his soul hidden inside a needle inside an egg, is a powerful metaphor for our own vulnerabilities. It reminds us that no matter how powerful or secure we may seem, everyone has a hidden weakness, a core of fragility that makes us ultimately human. These stories provide a safe, symbolic space to explore the most terrifying aspects of existence, allowing us to confront the concept of death indirectly through the struggles and triumphs of a mythical being. This rich tapestry of global mythology reveals that every culture imagines a different version of eternity because every culture holds different values. The Chinese dragon, representing celestial harmony and imperial authority, shows a society that valued order, balance, and wisdom as the highest forms of permanence. The Norse Einherjar, feasting and fighting until Ragnarok, embody a culture that prized courage, honor, and martial prowess so highly that they built an entire afterlife around perfecting it. The Hindu pursuit of Amrita, the nectar of immortality, through cosmic collaboration and sacrifice, reflects a spiritual philosophy that sees liberation from cyclical suffering as the true goal, not mere endless earthly life. Each immortal creature is a cultural self-portrait, a declaration of what that society believed was truly worth preserving forever. In our modern world, this ancient conversation is more relevant than ever. As we stand on the precipice of unprecedented scientific advancement, with breakthroughs in genetics, artificial intelligence, and biotechnology promising to radically extend the human lifespan, we are collectively becoming like the sorcerers and alchemists of old, attempting to seize the power of the gods. But these myths offer us a crucial cautionary wisdom. They ask us to look beyond the mere technical question of can we, and to seriously consider the deeper, more philosophical question of should we. The vampire warns us of the potential for eternal life to become a lonely curse of isolation and endless craving. The Golem teaches us about the profound difference between animating a body and granting a soul, a lesson that resonates deeply in our age of artificial intelligence. The Eight Immortals show us that a meaningful eternity might be found not in a lab, but through a path of ethical living and spiritual alignment. Ultimately, the eternal allure of these beings lies in their ability to hold a conversation with us across centuries. They give shape to our formless anxieties and give hope to our deepest desires. They don't provide easy answers, but they frame the questions in ways that are profound, beautiful, and terrifying. As we continue our own real-world quest to push the boundaries of life, these stories remain our essential guides. They compel us to think critically about what we are striving for. Do we want an immortality of endless consumption, like a dragon on a hoard of gold? Or do we seek an immortality of wisdom and service, like the Simurgh watching over the world? The myths remind us that the goal is not simply to add more years to our life, but to ensure that we add more life to our years, however many we are given. They challenge us to define for ourselves what a well-lived eternity would actually look like, and in doing so, they help us understand what it means to live a meaningful life right now. What immortal creature from mythology speaks most deeply to you? Does the phoenix's cycle of rebirth inspire you with its message of hope and renewal? Or perhaps the tragic, cursed existence of the vampire resonates with your own fears about isolation and the darker side of eternal life? Maybe it's the profound wisdom of the Simurgh, who has watched worlds rise and fall, that captures your imagination. We have explored so many different visions of eternity, from the cosmic scale of Yermangander to the intimate, heartbreaking choices of the Selkies. Each one reveals something unique about the culture that created it, and in turn reflects a different facet of our own humanity. We are so curious to know which being you find most compelling and what you believe its story says about our own collective desires and fears. Share your thoughts and personal connections in the comments below. Let's continue this fascinating conversation together. If this journey across cultures and through time has captivated you, if you've enjoyed unraveling the secrets of these eternal beings, please show your support. Giving this video a like really helps us out and lets us know you want more content like this. Subscribe to the channel and tap that notification bell so you never miss our next adventure into the mysteries of history, mythology, and the incredible stories that have defined human imagination for millennia. There are so many more legends to explore, from the depths of the ocean to the farthest reaches of the stars. Thank you so much for watching, and we can't wait to see you in the next video.